Is the one in the office yours?
Clerk Royal, I'm sorry, are you good, City Manager?
It's an extra one.
All right, I'd like to call this Saline City Council work meeting to order at 6:02 p.m. Members present. We have council members Delorco, Dillon, Gearbaugh, Halsch, Harmount, Mayor Pro Tem Rice, and Mayor Morrow. From city staff, we have the city manager and city clerk, and 2 members in the audience. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as submitted unless there are amendments.
Moved as submitted.
Moved by Gearbaugh to approve as submitted. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Harmount. All those in favor of approving the agenda as submitted signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. The motion carries unanimously. We move on to public comments under the Open Meetings Act. Any person may come forward at this time, make comment or question to City Council. This public comment period will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Anyone who would like to speak is requested but not required to state their name and address for the record. Are there any citizen comments? I would defer to the city clerk. Were there any written comments provided in advance of tonight's meeting which the individual wanted their remarks read at this time? Easy enough. Then we transition to the one and only discussion item, which is Saline Fire Board Articles of Incorporation. Again, per an email that was sent from both the city manager and from myself, we're trying to get consensus this evening because I believe the Saline Fire Board would like to vote on this matter at their upcoming meeting, which is this Wednesday, February the 4th. City Manager Swallow, would you like to begin? And then I would welcome comments from first Lori Champion, one of our fire board representatives, then Councilmember Gearbaugh, and then finally I'll defer to Councilmember Delorco if he has comments. Then we'll open up for questions.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor and Council. As Council is aware, for the last several years, the city has been working with our township partners on the governance structure for the Saline Area Fire Department. This has been an ongoing, evolving effort, even to the point of changes to state statute to make it possible for a partial township to join a fire authority. So with that, there's been a lot of close investigation into the option of forming a fire authority with the 3 townships and the city, and specifically that was studied as part of, in 2025, the city commissioned a study, hired an expert consultant to review the options of the restructuring the Saline Area Fire Department, what would be the best structure going forward, and the general consensus from that study was that should consider a fire authority under the Public Act that's allowed, Public Act 57. So with that, that is kind of the direction that has been taken over the last several months. The Fire Board, and more specifically the Steering Committee, which is made up of a member from each of the communities, has been taking a previous draft of Articles of Incorporation that were worked on. This is the foundational document of any fire authority. You start out with the Articles of Incorporation. There are certainly other documentation, including bylaws and other policies and procedures, potentially even ordinances the city will have to adopt. But the Articles of Incorporation are essentially the basis document for that fire authority. So they've been working on that. In conjunction with that, the city also did a review, taking a look at it at your October 6th meeting. I presented a analysis of the various options, specifically looking at fire authority, looking at just regional cooperation, looking at the status quo, and based on the analysis of the city representatives, which included city staff, the recommendation was to proceed with the fire authority. So again, the Fire Board, as well as the Steering Committee, has been working on the Articles of Incorporation. You received the latest version of that. It's gone through various iterations and development. It has been reviewed by all of the Fire Board members, as was mentioned. The Fire Board voted to distribute it out to the communities for hopefully what will be some of the final edits to that so that it can be moved forward for adoption. With that, once the Fire Board recommends adoption of the articles, it'll go again back out for formal action by the council and the township boards. So this is not obviously the final say this evening. This is a discussion to try and get those final edits and the final version of these articles moved forward. So there are a lot of things that the committee and the board has looked at. You'll notice that the powers of the authority and the board are enumerated in the document. The number of board members has been reviewed and discussed. Whether or not to include an at-large board member that was reviewed, and the decision was to include an at-large board member. Things like what constitutes quorum, what alternate members are allowed to vote on, and when a supermajority may be required for a vote for a certain decision. number of officers and who's eligible to be an officer. Oversight of the fire chief was discussed at length. The budget adoption process and timeframe. Funding of the authority, and keep in mind, we currently do not obviously have a dedicated millage, but so what that would look like without a millage, go and also with a millage in the goal long term is to put this to a ballot, really not that long term, but really in the next election cycle to put forth, if the authority is formed, put forth a millage request, what that funding structure would look like. Again, hopefully not, but if a community were to withdraw, what are the provisions for that? And then also, what are provisions for hopefully potentially growing the fire authority in the future? There's been some discussions relative to with the townships adjacent and with current relationship with Milan, what would happen there? And then the need for some specific bylaws and policies and procedures to implement the articles. So with that, we want to maybe go through, that's a very brief summary, go through kind of article by article, or take questions and we can focus in on particular issues.
Yeah, let's take questions and concerns from the dais in just a moment. I do want to provide, again, our representatives to the Saline Area Fire Board an opportunity to share some remarks, in particular, Ms. Champion, who's worked on this a bit longer than our other two council representatives who were just recently appointed to the Fire Board and began their terms in January of 2026. Ms. Champion, is there any additional comment that you would like to make pertaining to the draft Articles of Incorporation?
First of all, I'd like to comment that thank you, City Manager Swallow, for your comments. I agree with that summary. Thank you for that. I do want to thank the council as well for the investment you made in that report last year, which was incredibly helpful and really helped to point the way forward and to verify some prior analysis that had been done with some additional facts and information, which was very helpful. At this point, I chair the steering committee of the board, which is tasked with the fire board with spending many hours discussing these topics and then bringing it back to the board for further discussion. So there has been a lot of conversation with the full board as well as within the steering committee with the attorneys around the documents. It's just to let you know that we have really worked hard not only to produce a document that has been thoughtfully considered, but also to build consensus. One of the things that's really important to me in chairing that steering committee with that particular task, and then also representing the city on the overall fire board, is to make sure we don't leave anybody behind as we're moving through the analysis. So at any point in time where there were concerns or questions, we would take the time necessary to go through that together. I would also point out that this is just the next stage. So now we're at the Articles of Incorporation. After this, we would need to do the bylaws, which will contain more details, of course, as you know. We are also focused on a path where we'll look at the control environment, the policies and procedures, many of which have been built up over the last 12 to 18 months, by taking those to the next level where they need to be. And so I'm not saying there's anything wrong or missing today. I just want you to know that's part of the build out as we think about moving to the authority as a form of entity and the governance that's required around that. There is 100% alignment within the board and the four municipalities that make it up, that we want to be sure that our processes and procedures mature as appropriate, to support that next step into the future. So that's a lot of preamble, but it's just to let you know what some of the thinking has been to date.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you. Appreciate your leadership, and hang tight, Ms. Champion, because there might be some questions that are best addressed by you. Councilmember Gearbaugh, anything else you'd like to add to this discussion?
Yeah, I believe our last meeting that we had was very productive. All the township members were part of it and contributed significant input in things. There were a number of things that we talked about, from my concerns being the administrative oversight and reporting needs, but that we do realize that the Articles of Incorporation are really more of an oversight type of thing, where we will move more into the bylaws, we'll get more information. But there are some things that I believe, should be in the Articles of Incorporation to make sure that proper controls and administrative aspects of who is appointing to or who's reporting to whom are included. A couple things that we did review more is the process of how a millage would be asked. The idea that, in the future, should we get approved our millage, and then if, you go for renewal, that those type of procedural things, the way they were listed in it, didn't allow for a lot of time. So we've moved those timescales up. So it's similar to like what the schools would do. You ask a year before it re-expires. You don't ask it 2 months prior to it. And then the other thing really is just looking at concerns regarding York is talking about potentially wanting to expand to the full township, which is a little different than what we have talked about previously. And then the other thing of some of it is that we as a city will be committing as a guarantor for whatever happens in the future. Should the millage not get approved, then we are guarantored and we will have to figure out how to pay for that at that point. My concern was trying to figure out, is there an issue related to how do you then address that concern, or are we automatically having to pay it? And how do you address the issue with the unit itself? So how do you reduce costs? How do you address for deficits? Those type of things should that need to appear. And then the last thing is to making sure that the debts and liabilities that are currently of the operations are absorbed by this unit and not by our city.
Thank you for that. Councilmember Del Orco, anything you'd like to add before we open up for questions?
Thank you, Mayor. I think City Manager Swallow, Lori, and Councilmember Gearball did an excellent job summarizing what was discussed at the Fire Board meeting. I had a chance to attend. I thought the meeting was very meaningful, very productive. All the townships had some meaningful contributions to the wordsmithing of this document, how they wanted it to be phrased, how it was important to not have it be too defined in the sense that we didn't have flexibility to change things as the Fire Board grows. A lot of things were moved into the bylaws, which we'll look at later, which is more easily modified. Some of the language was removed, just referring to Act 57, because a lot of things are laid out in Act 57. So this is really an opportunity for everyone to ask questions about the language as we see it in front of us, and it's been through several drafts at this point. So I'm eager to hear people's thoughts.
Very good. Thank you for that, Councilmember Del Orco. I'm going to start with questions today for both the work meeting and for the special presentation. I'm going to begin to my right, far right, and end to my left. Of course, I'll conclude at the end if I have any additional questions or comments that haven't been asked by my colleagues. So I will begin this evening with Councilmember Hulsh. If you have questions for the city manager or our three representatives to the Fire Board.
Awesome. Thank you, Mayor. So I had one question that I had was specifically in the appointment section of appointment of officers. I think 11. No, I'm sorry.
Board members is section 9.
9 is board members?
Yes, board members. It mentions governing body of the city, of the two representative, the representative board members. Is by governing body, is that the entirety of council, or is that going to be similar to our current sort of boards and commissions process where, it's kind of an application that ultimately we approve or...
Do you want to address that, Ms. Champion? So this
Intended to be the city council and/or the board of trustees of the municipalities.
Yeah. Just make sure in the future you speak at the microphone. You're good for now.
I'm just going to come stand here.
Yep, perfect. We clear on that, Councilmember Hulsh?
Yes.
Okay.
And then I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
No,
City manager.
yes, it is intended to be the city council. Obviously, we may be looking for ideas from, whether the community and or from council as well as to who may want to serve. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. And then, so yeah, that's full.
It will be at the recommendation of the mayor,
Okay.
and then council will have the final authority of approving it.
And just for some context, Councilmember Hulsh, I believe it was 2 years ago now, we changed the existing governing structure to permit private citizens to serve as board members of the Saline Fire Board. Prior to Ms. Champion's appointment, it required that it be the chief presiding officer of the four participating municipalities, which is 3 supervisors and the mayor, and then 1 member of their board of trustees or city council. And it was modified to say it shall be at least 1 member of the elected body and another member of your choosing.
Okay. Thank you for that context. And then I guess, and as I'm hearing you say, some of this may be hashed out in the bylaws, but one of the questions that I have was, well, actually, it's a multi-part question. So the first part of it is, what happens if for some reason a municipality falls into arrears or has a grievance with the authority? How will those disputes be handled? Or is that something that is appropriate in the Articles of Incorporation, or is that something that will be kind of expanded in the bylaws?
Take a stab at that, Ms. Champion.
Happy to. In terms of the obligation under Article 20, there is an ability to withdraw from the fire authority, and there's a procedure laid out for that. The debts and liabilities continue and are an obligation of the entity as defined. In terms of a dispute mechanism, really have a dispute mechanism. That's something we could put in the bylaws, though.
I just figure, and part of where I came from with arrears is, let's say we as a city, I'll use Saline as an example. Let's say we withhold money because we don't like the service from X, Y, Z, or, we don't like this aspect or this policy or procedure. At what, will we still receive service from the authority even though we're technically in arrears, or during that period of dispute? It was kind of where that thinking came from.
Thank you so much. There have been occasions in the past where one of the municipalities did stop payment during a period where they felt that they should have an adjustment, for example. The way this is laid out, it says your obligation is it's mathematically determined. We all agree on the budget, and then we've all agreed on the formula for how everything is allocated. And there used to be a formula that was quite complex in its nature and sometimes confusing. And so we have a simplified approach, which is based on adjustable tax value as the end of each period. And so we know those numbers. We'll know them finally at the beginning of or the middle of this month. So that's formulaic. It also says that you need to pay according to the payment terms. So that's also formulaic. There is not today wording in here that says what happens if somebody doesn't pay. And I would like to talk to the attorneys about that and see if we should add any further language into that, or perhaps again that could go in the bylaws.
It was just, to me, I thought it seemed missing or odd that we didn't have any sort of or anything like that. So that was all of my questions. I'm really excited to see the bylaws and kind of see this build out. And, I trust the people that are on the committee. And so, yeah, I'm excited to see the work.
Very good. Thank you, Councilmember Hulsh. Councilmember Delorco, do you have any questions at this time?
Not at this time.
Okay. Councilmember Dillon?
Thank you. Before I start, I wanted to ask if anybody would be amenable to sort of changing the process right now and just going through each of the articles so that we're all on the same page of, okay, we all agreed to this, and then move the document forward instead of random questions in different sections. Does anyone have a preference on that?
I think we've got 2 people who probably don't have any additional questions at this juncture.
Okay, well then I'll just...
Okay, so I
Okay.
think just proceed.
That's fine. So one of the first things is kind of going through the document when we talk just really basic at the name of the organization. We're changing it to Fire Authority. Is that just its professional name? And will it forward-facing still be the Saline Area Fire Department?
That changes to Fire Authority. That's per the statute.
And so, but we can't use that as the layman's name, and so we're gonna have to rebrand the fire department.
We have to change the name of the fire department.
So the entire, so all branding, all the names on all of the trucks have to be changed, all of their gear has to be changed, everything like that will have to be changed.
There's no requirement, to my knowledge, that says if we become a fire authority tomorrow, by Friday, we have to have all the names on the trucks changed.
Right.
So I do think that's an operational question.
And to that, obviously the legal name.
Right.
Is the Saline Area Fire Authority.
Right.
I think by concurrence, the members could agree not to rebrand and change the name.
And that's where I want to understand, because it's going to be an expensive rebrand. And
one time this came up, the idea was that we would simply change it over as we bought new vehicles. So
that's fine, just trying to understand that aspect of it. Kind of going through, I'm going to sort of go through in sort of some of the order in which I have stuff. The fire chief, under definitions, it says means the fire administrative officer of the authority. Is he an administrator or an operational? Because I feel like those are two totally different positions, and are we having a secondary person?
So two things. Much like the way the city operates, you have a chief executive who has operational and administrative responsibilities. So the way this is set up, your fire chief has both responsibilities. It's not bifurcated into two different roles. I believe the statute does refer to chief administrative officer, and so that language is pulled into these articles in order to make sure it's consistent. But the idea here, as it stands, is that you have a fire chief who has operational and administrative responsibilities. One person responsible to the board and to the community for the operation of that fire department and for making appropriate reports and all of that kind of thing. There is an administrative position that is defined and filled by Natasha Smolensky today. And so I know there's been discussion, and I'm sure we'll talk about it some more, about the possibility of, in the bylaws, ensuring that that person has direct reporting ability to the fire board, or at least to perhaps the chair of the board and the treasurer. And I think that, we can put that on the list for the bylaws and certainly, take care of that. We did debate the possibility of splitting the role, and the strong viewpoint in the group was that we're just not big enough to afford two highly compensated chiefs, if you will, in that structure right now, when we have been struggling to fund having enough firefighters, to run the department properly. So, if we had a bigger budget, could we split that into two roles? We probably could. Even then, we'd have to be careful about, how those operations are delineated and coordinated.
I appreciate that. One of the concerns I know, having sat on the fire board for over 10 years, was that you have someone that's approving their own expenses, that is doing something that way. And so just sort of understanding where the checks and balances is, whether that's physically a person, whether that's an offshoot of that board, the treasurer role of the board, where they have ownership in things. I just would like that to be a consideration to make sure that there is a process that goes. And I do like your idea that the administrator has a direct line of reporting to the board, where it's not just a parallel to the chief.
And,
I do that as well. And I know in the meeting there was a lot of discussion around the treasurer role, and basically, expanding the role of the treasurer, and you see as it's defined, it shall be the custodian of the funds, shall be bonded, and shall have the responsibility to basically oversee the funds of the authority. So I think there's an expanded responsibilities for the treasurer that's outlined in the articles as well.
Yes, and indeed. My thought there in comment is that it was actually the treasurer's role to check the expenditures in the checkbook in the past. It just wasn't being done.
Like I said, I know that since you've joined on, there has been some changes and just making sure that it's continuing down that same path.
He goes in every month and sits down and goes through everything, and he showed me his way of doing it. So I'm comfortable he is doing a good job with that. But to your point, this is part of the maturity of the process and the rhythm and the culture to make sure that those things actually happen correctly.
Right. I appreciate that. So, because I'm still in definitions right now, municipal emergency services, it's sort of is that a defined term in Act 57? Because it has a weird meaning. It means an emergency service performed by a municipality rather than by this authority. I guess I was just trying to understand what an example of that would be.
That comes out of the Act.
Okay, that's fine then. And then moving on to municipality, which means a county, city, village, or township. And I guess I was wondering, should it also say or portion thereof? Because this kind of goes back to the reoccurring theme, and Mr. Gearbaugh did mention it, is it's implying that York is fully covered, that the entire township is covered.
There's wording later on that allows a partial municipality
Under Article 5
participation.
jurisdiction shall determine the territory under the authority's jurisdiction. So the municipalities, kind of have that ability to designate a portion of the township in this case, because that was the question I had too, is to make sure that we could still operate, with that.
I'm sorry, what do you mean we can still operate with that? I missed the first part.
Just with a partial township.
Okay. I mean, that was the whole reason that they became an authority, was to be a partial township. So I feel as though there should be an acknowledgement of a portion of a township.
But if we change municipality to partial, or to allow partial, then you're saying, okay, the partial municipality does not itself have a governing body. So the municipality that's part of the authority is the full municipality, but they have the right in the document to put a designated portion of territory into the fire department. We also wanted to preserve that, even though there's discussion of York bringing the full township in. That's not done yet. And we could wait forever to get this done until we knew what everybody was going to do, and then it would change anyway. So the idea here is to give flexibility, to allow partial today, to allow partial to expand to total. And frankly, in the future, 10 years from now, none of us might be here, but presumably, sitting in these particular chairs, hopefully we're here watching and providing wisdom and guidance. Sorry for that. I didn't mean to foretell anything. So the situation, though, is that in the articles, part of what we thought was important was giving future boards in future governing bodies of the municipalities the ability to perhaps accept an additional partial addition.
Okay, I guess I just want to understand, because in what I was leading to is Article 3 specifically says that it's the incorporating municipalities are including the charter township of York as an entity, as a whole entity. I just am trying to understand if we're carving out that at this point in time, the fire authority only encompasses a portion of your township.
But you have to look at it. We've got two ways to think about it, I think. One way is who's making the decision. That's the municipality in its totality. So York is deciding to be part of the fire authority. Second question, what portion of its territory, total or partial, is being put into the service area of the fire department? And today that's partial.
Okay.
But we can't have a partial municipality making a decision to join. The whole municipality joins and then decides how much to put in.
Okay.
It does state in Article 5 too that they will create a map and that incorporated municipalities shall advise if there's any redistricting.
Right, and I've got some notes about that, so I do understand that. And so I'll kind of move off of that so that I can make sure I get through this. Article 6, when we talk about powers under corporate body, and it says, that the authority now has the power to sue or be sued. Are we now separating the municipalities from the authority? So we can be named in lawsuits, but we are not necessarily a automatic party to lawsuits, correct?
It's its own entity.
It's its own entity. Just clarifying that.
That was really part of the point.
Kind of go back to the earlier point of somebody.
No, that's understanding that. Then looking at, still in Article 6, when I look at F, just FYI, you still have a Roman numeral article there instead of a numerical number, because I know that things have changed. And then same in H of that same section, just understanding the word gift.
This is in the Act too. We went through this. We had the same question. So a gift could be someone donates land to the fire department as a bequest or something like that.
Okay, just understanding. And so the authority would have to accept that as an authority. The chief, no individual has authority to do anything outside of the authority.
And we have reminded the chief of that.
Okay.
Yes. Do not obligate the fire department today or the fire authority in the future. The board has to do that.
So kind of going back to the member at large concept, can you just talk quickly about what the pros are of keeping that member at large?
The main pro, and we can talk about the cons too, obviously, is that if we see, first of all, it helps break a tie because you have an odd number. 2, it gives the opportunity for the board, and again, we've put in a defined structure here where the board will appoint a nominating committee made up of the board. Fire chief is not on the nominating committee. Anyone can put their name forward or submit somebody else's name to the nominating committee, but the nominating committee has to review and vet and approve people not to join the board, approve them to be put forward to the board for the board's consideration. So a 3-step process there. It's the board's job to then vet and decide if someone is right to come into that position. The major pro is the ability to find people with expertise who would be valuable to the fire authority, where we might need some additional experience or wisdom or background that would be beneficial to do that. Now, we went back and forth on, couldn't we rely on the municipalities in total to help make sure that those people who are appointed to the roles from the municipality, so those 8 people, would cover whatever experience might be appropriate or necessary. And of course, you would want that to be the case. But there are other considerations, such as we may not have, depending on how a municipality's governance body is formed, you may not have someone on the city council or the board of trustees for a township that has the experience that we need. We might not have that person. One of the examples given was to have somebody with law enforcement or emergency services background who sits on the board and helps to bring that kind of experience to the table. Craig is a great example of that today.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you very much. I want to make sure that I'm mindful of time. I do still have a lot of questions, but under terms, and it says that like a member at large can serve 2-year term. Do we have term limits? can you only serve one term for like all of like
We did
eternity?
not put term limits in. We
Is
could.
it intentional, or I just feel like it either should say that there's term limits or say that there is no, that someone can serve more than one term.
Instead of leaving it silent.
Right.
I don't know. There's no, thank you for that. I mean, we could take it back. We did debate this question. I believe the lawyer's advice was to leave it as is, as opposed to defining it as there are no term limits. The thought process was it probably not necessary to put that into the document. We could always modify, though. We could always add that in future. The idea for the member at large is that has to be approved every 2 years. And so the wisdom of the board will rule in terms of, you know, is this person somebody that we want to keep, or is it time to make a change?
Okay.
No.
And I also wasn't sure whether there was clarification that every cycle, it has to rotate in from a different municipality.
It doesn't say
It
that.
doesn't say anything, because it was something that we had talked about in the past,
Yeah.
was that should that member at large rotate between the 4 different municipalities, where we only seek at one point. And you can see it from both sides.
Sure.
I just wasn't sure whether that was a conversation that was ever continued. The other conversation that was brought up that I'd like to make sure to bring up.
Janet, just to say it was, but it comes down to how many qualified people do we have?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
No, absolutely. And the other aspect was that at one point, the city was advocating that for qualified from the city, that city staff should be considered. Not just geographical residents of the city. And that sort of was a debate that sat out there for a long time, that it was something the city was pretty adamant about.
The city can put that person in for the member at large. That's another benefit of the member at large,
Okay.
right?
Well, for the member at large would just be a vote of who's they're putting up for that position, correct?
Well, if the city had someone on staff that the city who is not a resident of the city, but is a resident of one of the townships, the township could nominate them forward. Or the city, the township could just appoint them directly.
But as the city's representative.
Nominate them as a city representative. not to
Right,
be-
because if you remember last year when we were changing this, that was part of that conversation, was that we had asked that city staff be included within that. And there was some buy-in, there was some pushback, and I didn't know if that conversation had continued at all.
Right now, there's no prohibition. I mean, I think it's more our internal rules that would conflict with that, where staff can't necessarily serve an appointed position. It's more our internal rules that would, not necessarily these articles that would prohibit that.
To be very specific, at what point we had looked at putting the city manager in as the board representative. But the city manager was not a resident of the city of Saline. And so by board standards, didn't qualify for the position.
It's really our internal rules. There's nothing in here that says you have to be a resident.
Yes, it does.
I think it's in the bylaws. Yeah, you have to be a resident.
It's 9.6, I believe.
Thank you. Okay, each representative member and alternate members shall be a qualified elector residing within the territorial boundaries of the incorporating municipality who appointed him or her, and within the jurisdiction of the authority or an elected official.
So, okay, I'm going to stop there. Let others, we'll see if
Okay, we got we got about 20 minutes here, folks. So, Mr. Gearbaugh, any additional comments or questions?
Just a couple comments. I mean, one of the things we talked about and didn't get much buy-in was the idea of term limits for officers. Respective of being that the chairperson being the same year after year after year, which in a lot of situations, at some point, you would have a term either 3 to 5 years. and have that turnover just to make sure you're in compliance with that. I still think we should consider that and discuss that further. It's just it's a good practice, and really the ability to make sure that leadership and everything is not put in a situation, especially when we're expecting more controls upon, like the treasurer and those type of things. And then the other issue was, we talked about audit is going to be a very key indicator in this, and that the auditors need to be a very highly qualified one. We can't pick a small audit firm and expect them to do the same level of expertise as a municipal auditor. So I'm hoping that'll be a part of the bylaws of some nature. And then go ahead, Laura.
I think that belongs as a policy. So we have a policy on who's qualified to serve as a vendor, in certain areas of professional services. I feel that way about engineering firms and other types of firms as well, right? Term limits for officers, I think we can put that in the bylaws, unless I'm mistaken.
For officers, yes, we can, because actually, I think we had that in the planning one, similar to that situation.
Yeah, you could use a number of our board and commission bylaws as an example. But there are a number that mandate a term limit.
So that one we can take care of in bylaws and policy. Okay, Dean, what else?
And I think one other, when I was reading about the municipality, the idea is that this authority will be able to levy its own millage, but it also reads that either the municipality or the authority. So the intent that should the authority not be able to, or a renewal is not voted upon, then the municipality can have and step in and make a separate.
As they do today.
As they do today. But our goal, though, is that they will issue it, and then we'll just serve as a collection for it, not necessarily. Councilmember Haash's statement about that, we hold back payments, that shouldn't happen in this authority situation. Right.
Yeah. It only happens under case 2 if the millage fails. We have to go back to the current way, and then each municipality decides how they're going to fund it from general fund or raising a millage.
Right, and that's where my concern was, is that authority can just say, we need $5 million, you need to give us your component of it, without actually going in and saying, we need to rescope. And we were talking about the issue is, should you, at some time in the future, if you had to scale back the size of the department or whatever, we addressed that. And I think we did address that somewhere in here. Did we fix that wording? Because that's a concern that.
If the millage fails, then the budget goes back for reaffirmation.
That's good.
Yep.
And then it will be apportioned according to the formula.
Good safeguard.
I think that's really for me right now. We'll continue to do some more of these reviews as we work on it on Wednesday.
Very good. Councilmember Rice, questions for staff or our liaisons to the fire department?
No questions. I just want to make one comment that in my 4th year of being on council, the last 9 months have been the most productive, calm way forward with this fire department than any years in the past. And I attribute a lot of that to Ms. Champion. I think from the moment you stepped in to fill in, your abilities to kind of see the whole picture and then meet with everyone and sit down with everyone and sort this out for us. If we could pay you for this, it would break us because your time and energy is priceless. So I just want to put that out there to the community that this is a long time coming to get to this point where we have hopefully a great way ahead with this authority, and I feel like the trust is back amongst everyone, and just can't thank you enough for that.
Well, I am just going to say thank you so much. That's so kind of you. I get paid in the teamwork and productivity of the team, and the fact that you can see people coming together, and it's this whole team working together. Everybody's had a part to play, but you're kind to say that. So
Thank
all
you.
good.
Thank you
Yep.
both. Councilmember Hartman, you have some questions?
Yes, I do want to echo what Councilmember Brace said. I was able to witness it, and I was also very impressed by your ability to bring parties to the table to move forward with a productive solution. I do have a couple questions, if you don't mind. I kind of look at this as a three-prong. It's the financial impact, it's the service quality, and it's the governance. And those are the three things that I'm concerned about, and just want to kind of reiterate for the public that may not know just some items that I'm probably privy to. But just to clarify, the service coverage and quality is not changing from our current situation, correct? Other than maybe improving, but we will not have any. It's not this moving in this direction is not going to leave anybody in our city, in the city of Saline, at a less advantageous position from a coverage standpoint, correct?
That is my understanding. We spent a lot of time on that, what the mission is, what the service standards are, and the agreement to that. And of course, all of the municipalities have come together to help raise the funding. You know, last year was a significant move, and that helps us achieve that goal.
Okay, so keep it on. So thank you for clarifying that. The other question to go along with the finances. So I was looking through here. If there is a municipality that were to leave, it says that their assets are stay with the authority, or they can take their assets. What happens to their assets?
The assets stay with the authority.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is there any limitation of that? Like if there's a municipality that signs on and 2 months later they're like, oh, wait, this is not what we thought it was, or there's no reverter clause, right? So as we're moving forward, everybody's committing their assets, including buildings as well, right? Whatever assets.
What we have today. So the idea is the things that we own today, building equipment, etc., will transfer into the authority and become the property of the authority. And this idea where if the fire department or somebody left or the fire department didn't exist anymore, everybody would get, a portion back. That goes away. This is now the authority's property. There are specific notice provisions for each of the entities, which require some time of notice before anyone can leave. Yeah.
So by this, we're committing forever our building, our firehouse, correct? So we're in the authority, and so is our firehouse. So if we were to leave, we would have to have our own firehouse, build a new firehouse. Is that maybe?
Your own equipment,
Okay.
all of that.
Okay. The third question that I have is the governance. So this is not changing anything with regards to the vote. So every municipality has the equal amount of vote regardless of how much money is going in. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Those are the questions that I have. Thank you.
We did insert 2 votes that require supermajority. Sorry, a defined additional. What do we call it? Sorry.
It is actually supermajority.
Supermajority, yeah, thank you, I was just checking. Thank you, Dan. So if we decide to raise taxes, that requires an additional level of majority, if you will.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd just like to echo too, I mean, obviously the goal with the governance structure and having, a more uniform approach to things is that service will improve. And even I think if the millage is passed, it also provides some additional funding that would come to the fire service or emergency service. So I think that's helpful. The other thing I'd like to point out in debts and liabilities, if someone withdraws, but there's still a debt, so they bought a new fire truck with debt, they're actually still responsible for their portion of that debt. So there's some protection that way as well.
So going into it, right? So
If you were on the board or you're part of the authority, they bought a new fire truck, you'd responsibility for your proportionality of that, whether it be, based on the tax liability. And then even if you withdrew, you're still responsible to help pay off that debt. So there's some additional protection.
And all of your debts going into the authority would need to be paid off before entering into the authority as well?
No, they become the responsibility of the authority. I don't know that there's no outstanding bonds or anything that I'm aware of.
OPEB.
Any additional questions? No, I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead, Councilmember Dillon.
Thank you. So big question is, has there been any feedback from the other municipalities about like what they've seen? Are we the last to review this in a public meeting? So have we seen any feedback, and is there any concerns from those 3 other municipalities at this point?
Nothing material that I'm aware of. And by the way, all the lawyers reviewed it, or lawyers for all 4 municipalities previously. And several of the municipalities had the lawyers come in and talk with them as part of their work meeting.
Okay. And Councilmember Harmont talked about this, and I just wanted to sort of clarify that, what you brought to the party now becomes community assets. So there's been a longstanding issue about the city owning part of that land that the firehouse sits on and stuff. Is the city going to be, are they buying any of that out from us? Are we gifting it in? How is that working?
So I've looked at the property records. There is just one, vacant piece that still has the city's name on it. I think that was really, when it was originally, turned over to the fire department, that was in error, that piece remained vacant, that was not, changed over name. So in my mind, that vacant piece would go with the building.
I thought that it was more than that, but I may be mistaken. So just understanding that, and just to understand that if anything that we have put in as a city asset, the building or the property, understanding whether we are being compensated for that prior to the authority. I'd like to understand that piece of it. And then I also wanted to understand, will the steering committee go away?
If the board votes for the steering committee to go away, the steering committee is a creature of the board. It's been appointed by the board to do strategic planning and then subsequently to work on the authority. I think largely because the group as a whole was able to make progress. If it outlives its usefulness and isn't needed anymore, I would imagine making a motion that we close it down. We do need to finish the strategic plan, which is nearly done. But we turned attention to the authority as a next step. Frankly, it helped to get the articles of incorporation done, and it helped solidify that everyone is aligned that we want to do. So that goes back in the strategic plan, and we finish that next.
No, I appreciate that. This is something that we've talked about. I mean, we worked on getting to the point to become an authority that was a several-year process, and then it just sort of sat there. And then the other question that I have is sort of understanding, how does the authority's relationship work with HVA and such? Is that all stay the same? And so that's like, we don't have a part to that at all. It still stays all with that entity.
We, the city?
We, the city, yes.
It stays with the fire department, which then becomes the fire authority.
Okay. So, thank you very much.
Any additional questions, comments?
I have just one really quick.
Please.
What happens if there is some chance that a city ordinance supersedes or conflicts with a policy or ordinance with the fire board?
Do you mean like a building ordinance?
A building ordinance, or, a situation arises that causes council to act and pass an ordinance that may in some way conflict or overlap with the authority of the fire board?
That's a great example, a great question. I'm aware of a situation where a city passed an ordinance relating to curbs and the curvature of a curb without realizing that it made it hard for the fire trucks to go around the corner. And so that had to get fixed. And so, yeah, and thankfully, so I think they caught it before they, built any new curbs or corners. So we have not put that in the language of the document. We could certainly write a procedure for how that works, but basically, I would certainly hope that if that's the case, again, we always have the two appointees from each municipality who come to the fire board. If something like that happened, each of the appointees knows that part of our job is to bring new information to the fire board and then to bring feedback to our municipality. And so really working to help make that as productive as possible. We ought to be able to solve that. The other thing is we do have in here wording that says we are going to commonize our fire codes, which just makes it better and safer for everybody.
I guess I think I can articulate where the heart of that question came from was particularly with hiring practices. So let's say Saline has a non-discrimination ordinance that another municipality doesn't, and they're a part of this authority. Like, where do we kind of sort out that difference?
Well, the authority hires and manages its own employees.
Just
So-
add to that, I mean, they are an independent entity when the authority is formed, so, I mean, some of those internal practices, they would not necessarily have to follow.
They would have to develop their own.
Correct.
Correct, okay.
But the city's appointees could take to the fire board, here's a new and best practice. We think this is something the fire board
Should adopt,
should
okay.
adopt.
Okay,
So we can facilitate it that way too.
awesome, thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Very quickly.
Real quick, because I want to wrap up just a few minutes early.
That brings up another point, Mr. Swallow, that sort of operationally, we always include the fire chief when we go through community event planning, things like that. Operationally, will you still have the ability, the flexibility to do that with the chief?
The short answer is obviously we want to cooperate and will cooperate. But at the end of the day, I guess the fire board would, you know, if for some reason they disagreed with the request from the city, they could override that.
But why would we?
Yeah.
Yeah, why would we? Yeah. Can't
That's a-
imagine the circumstance in which that would occur.
I agree with Dan, yeah.
Okay. Ms. Champion, thank you. City Manager Swallow, thank you. And we acknowledge the service of our two board reps, elected board reps as well, Councilmembers Gearbaugh and Delorco. Keep up the good work, and we look forward to an update subsequent to your next regular fire board meeting on Wednesday the 4th. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn this work meeting at 7:57. Moved by Gearbaugh. Is there a second? Seconded by Dillon. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
now, but you verify it.
I'd like to call the Saline City Council meeting to order. If you'd please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much and welcome. There are copies of the agenda on the back table along with a sign-in sheet and listening devices if you require them. Roll call. Council members present this evening are Delarco, Dillon, Gearbaugh, Harmount, Halsch, Mayor Pro Tem Rice, and Mayor Morrow. From city staff, we have City Manager Swallow, Deputy City Manager Cole, and City Clerk Royal. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as submitted unless there are amendments.
So moved as submitted.
Moved by Gearbaugh to approve as submitted. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Rice. All those in favor of approving the agenda as submitted signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. The motion carries unanimously. There are no absences, so we'll proceed to the one and only presentation this evening, which is an update on the proposed downtown town square. And I would invite Mr. Kinley to come forward. I believe your presentation is on the screen. I will move out of the way, and you may begin when ready. If you want to take maybe 10, 15 minutes to provide us an update, Tyler, and then we'll entertain questions.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. So I've had a chance to meet with a number of the city council members here. So thank you very much for your time. A lot has happened since about a year and a week ago when we were here previously, and the city committed $500,000 towards this project. And I wanted to provide an update because I think it's about time. So an update, a lot has happened in a year. After the city committed, we then finalized our application and took it to the MEDC. At the same time, or roughly the same time, the state announced that this was the last year for this revitalization and placemaking program. So unfortunately for us, that meant basically everybody that was trying to put together a project for this year, next year, the year after, all submitted. And what that meant was a delay in when we could get seen. Basically, their agendas got full. So it created a bit of a delay in our being able to be presented to the MEDC. So by about April, we finally got on the agenda and we took our project forward. And the MEDC loved it. They really like the placemaking opportunities that they see. They like it being in the downtown core. They like the combination of retail mixed with new housing that's going in. But they said that the request, which at the time was $4 million, was too high. So they require above above 1.5 million to be considered regionally transformative. And they had already set a precedent of denying projects that were substantially larger than this one from that. So they didn't feel comfortable offering more than 1.5. So they came back and said, can you make this work with 1.5? So that was a substantial cut in what we were asking. So we had to go back to the drawing board a bit and figure out how to make it work. That consisted of downsizing a couple things, making some changes to what money went where. We put in additional money and we resubmitted, and they were again very excited. We've gone through a lot of design changes. We've gone through a lot of conversations with all sorts of stakeholders. And I think we have a project at this point that we're pretty proud of. And I think I've laid it out for most of you in pretty great detail because these things are complex. But this is a good opportunity to sort of provide a more public face to the project. So what you can see here is not exactly what it's going to look like, but a lot of the bones are there. It will, for the most part, look like this. Now I'll advance to the next slide. This is an overview of the project. At the top, you'll see a building going left to right, and then off to the side, a building going top to bottom. The building going left to right is the Murphy's Crossing building that has Kerrigan's Cafe, RMD Hair Salon, Cobblestone Rose, that's facing Ann Arbor Saline Road, and that's where the work is happening. So here you'll see below that is the green area. That is the majority of, that's grass at this point, and it's a lot of the social gathering space. And then below that, the red brick area, the staircase, that's the city property, and that's also going to be encompassed in this. So today I'll be talking a little bit about the financials, the timeline, and basically what we look at going forward. So the money. I wanted to give a real quick overview of how the money is spent here. The city has committed $500,000, and previously that was going to go into a larger scale development of the public space, and in paring it back, it's actually simplified how we're doing the financials. So I'll show you here, next slide. This shows the city of Saline's commitment, and the blue, well, it's blue or purple, I'm colorblind. So the area that's highlighted, that's the city portion, and all of the city funds will go onto that site. So no funds are being spent on my property. The city funds are going directly into the project as a whole to make it happen, and it's a major reason that the state is so excited about it. They don't see projects where public-private partnerships work together like this, and they see it as a huge win-win. And we've really created a fine or a bright line between our property and the cities, just so everyone feels comfortable about how the community's funds are being spent. What we'll do is basically segregate the costs so that any money spent by the city goes from the city directly to the contractors doing the work, and we can make that happen and be very transparent about those bills. It also pays for a storm drain inlet that just manages the water on the site. So this shows, you can see the city property encompasses the staircase that's in front of the PAS building, what's currently the pull-through for drop-off, for deliveries, etc. The changes there are not major. We want to keep that access so that vehicles can continue to come through. They're important. They're important for access to the parking lot. They're important for vehicular drop-offs of either pedestrians or retail merchandise. We do have a lot of tenants in there that rely on that, so we wanted to maintain it. However, the changes you'll see, instead of having a curb, we'd like to make it completely flat and separate it with bollards so that when it can be transformed into more of a public use, it has a public feel. We'll also change the hardscape from asphalt to something that denotes to a pedestrian, this is a pedestrian environment, so that if you do close that down for an event, let's say the farmer's market or Saline Music Series or any other event you may have, that can easily become a very pedestrianized area. The area on the other side of the bollards will get the same treatment, and what that treatment exactly is going to be planned by the city. So our landscape designer is Beckett and Rader. His name's Brian Barrick. He's a fantastic landscape designer. He has been working on our side. That's who Dan Swallow has also hired, so that it'll be a seamless transition, and we're working back and forth. There's a lot of talk back and forth just to make it all work. Similarly, on our side, we're talking to Main Street, to the Chamber, to anyone that may be hosting events to make sure that on our side, it also perfectly, offers whatever in a flexible way those events may need, whether it's hosting a music event, giving them a flexible stage with some sort of a covering gen. That was a request. But something that's flexible so that you're not creating a bunch of hardscape that prevents a lot of different uses. It's sort of a canvas, but one that is nice enough that even if it's not planned, it can be utilized by anybody. You can bring a picnic, you can make it a social gathering space. We'll plan to have some sort of seating, but it'll be movable so that you can take a chair, take a table, or even just sit on the grass. So that's the city portion. Looking at our portion, we will put in 4 new apartments. So above Kerrigan's, above Cobblestone, some people have seen it. It's the former Opera House. It's a grand space. It's gorgeous. It is vacant, and it has been vacant since the property was redeveloped 31 years ago. And it's been on our mind to try to make this happen for a long time. So we're looking at putting 4 apartments in there. We'll have the outdoor gathering space. There will be a separation between what is city and what is used by the tenants just outside their space, but the tenants won't have a ton. Most of the green space there will be leased to the city. So the city will have a substantial portion of our property and the city property to plan, to program, and how that's programmed, who programs it, would be decided by the city, and it would be managed by the city. We'll also be putting in a cocktail bar in the lower level that will face the public space, the social gathering space. We have a tenant in there that's excited to go in. We've been planning it. We've been talking to our contractors to make sure that it all works, and so far it does. And then we'll be doing upgrades to the existing conditions on Mac's patio and just throughout the property. So, you know, as we do this, we want it to sparkle when it's done. Moving ahead to the timeline, we're in submittal stage. So the MEDC we have to have everything in by March 9th, and the plan is to get everything in even before then. We have all of our ducks in a row for the most part, and what we're working on now is construction documents, so finalizing how everything is being put together, the floor plans of the apartments, the layout, and the mechanical requirements per code for the cocktail bar. They don't require us to have the final plans for the outdoor space, which is really nice because we're working on that, you know, with the city, with stakeholders. So that's something that allows us a little bit of flexibility afterwards. So March 9th, we'll get everything in. Then the MEDC reviews it. So far, they've been extremely receptive. One of the members of the board said it was the poster child for placemaking, and it's gotten a lot of kudos from that level. So, you know, from the MEDC side, they've said basically, as long as you get everything in and everything checks out, we're excited about it. It looks like it's going to get approved. So March 9th, we get everything in. Everything looks good. They will issue it's a memorandum of understanding that basically, in their language, they make a wedding analogy where what we've gotten so far is a letter of intent, and that's the engagement. So, you know, you proposed, they said yes, so that's where we're at now. The memorandum of understanding that we get is their analogy continues with, that's when you book your venue. So you're getting there. It's not I do yet, but you're really far down the line. And they've said a number of developers, most of them, in fact, will start to spend money at that point. In April or May, we would then receive the final go-ahead. At that point, they're committed. We're committed. That's when construction can start. So we'd see that starting sometime May or hopefully earlier. And construction is the hard one to know because there are so many question marks around construction. Not only just the timeline for getting things done, whenever you start digging stuff up and opening walls, you can find surprises, but also just getting steel can be a challenge. And we're running into that. We're trying to get everything bid already so that we can kind of get ahead of the game. But the construction timeline here shows about May till it's about a year. We feel confident that should everything go well, we can cut that down to 11, maybe 10, maybe even 9 months, but we're being conservative here. And then come May of next year, we'd be going through those last items and then having a grand opening. So if everything goes smoothly and there's no hiccups, we could be opening next April, next March. But suffice to say, I think next summer will be a summer when we can really start to activate this space and see it enlivened.
Tyler, I don't mean to interrupt, but your years are incorrect on this, just for the public's edification. The
I
26,
actually
27.
saw that earlier today and emailed in to say, hey, can we get that changed? And it looks like it didn't make it in. But no, construction's not currently going on. So yeah, sorry about that. So imagine you're seeing 2026 and 2027. So yeah, we would see a grand opening sometime next summer. And that encapsulates what we expect for the timeline. Again, construction timelines can fluctuate. There's a lot of things we don't know. I mean, tariffs can make things kind of crazy. And we just, we don't know exactly what's going to happen there, but this is a fairly conservative timeline. Moving ahead, this is the tax request that we're going to be making. This is new. I've had a conversation with most everyone about it. But the challenge on our end has been that reduction in $2.5 million. It's a challenge to work with. And on our end, we have put in more money. But it is a cash flow issue. And basically, the bank says, in order for us to give you a loan, you have to make enough money for the risk to be mitigated. The nice part for you is that the MEDC says, we will not loan you money if you make too much. So we have this sliver in which we can make enough to make the bank happy and to make them feel comfortable loaning us any money. And we can't make any more than the MEDC says we're allowed to make without them saying, this is not a need-based request anymore. At this point, we are teetering at the very first year, teetering on not getting a loan, and in subsequent years, going below that. And so our request here is not want-based, but need-based. In order to make the project financially feasible, we are requesting a tax freeze. And so this is not an abatement of current taxes. This is us taking the current taxes and just holding them at their current level. I know Jen would like to know exactly what the number is that's being talked about here in terms of what we're being given, right? The delta between what it would be and what it is. And I can say a lot of that is determined by what the assessor values the improvements to be. And we don't know that just yet, but based on Dan and I's conversations, it's somewhere in the range of like, Dan, what would you say, like 240, 250,000?
Total over the 10 years.
Total over the 10 years. So the total value of that in the 10 years equates to about $240,000, $250,000. But again, that's over 10 years. And it is the difference between financially this working and it not. So I was asked to be as brief as possible. I've been trying to get through this quickly because it's a very complex project, but I also wanted to allow for some opportunity for questions. So I guess I'll open the floor for questions. And also, I do imagine you'll want me to come back to discuss this more, so don't feel like you have to have your questions now. I'm available offline for any questions or concerns. And the MEDC, the individual that I'm working with there is named Holden Branch. He has said he is available to answer any questions and concerns as well. They see this as a very viable project, but also they have seen they look at all my numbers. They comb through everything. They've got experts that look at all these all day, and they have also assessed, yes, this is a legitimate request. The project doesn't work without this. And so they do support this request. So that being said, I'm open to any and all questions.
Good. We appreciate your time. It was a thorough presentation, but also pretty abbreviated. We appreciate you checking both boxes there, my friend. Thank you for your leadership on this. It's a long time coming, but it's good, I'm glad to see we're making some forward momentum. As Mr. Kinley indicated, I know he'll make himself accessible and available to you after tonight's meeting, and he will definitely be coming back to share more in the ensuing weeks and months. But we will do a round of questions questions. Again, I'm going to start to my far right and end to my far left. So Councilmember Hulsh, you have 5 minutes. Do you have any questions for, well, actually, before I get to, if you'll pardon me for just a moment, Mr. Hulsh, I would like to provide an opportunity for the city manager or deputy city manager who have worked quite a bit on this over the past 12 to 14 months. If there's anything you'd like to add for the public's benefit or for council's benefit?
Just appreciate Mr. Kinley's obviously offering up this investment and us able to kind of leverage that with our own improvements on the city side. We're working on a couple things right now, development agreement that would spell out in more detail exactly how that construction will occur and what the city's committing to and what Mr. Kinley's committing to. So I think that will be clear as we move forward, as well as, as he talked about, kind of streamlining exactly how that public access will be granted and how this space could work in conjunction with the city property. So it's been very valuable, and I think it'll be a tremendous improvement to downtown.
Very good. Deputy City Manager Cole, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, that's perfect. Thank you very much.
Very good. Councilmember Hulsh, I apologize for the impertinence. You have 5 minutes if you'd like to ask any questions or make any comments.
Just one really quick question. You mentioned that the city still has some designs to do and working with the same designer. Who ultimately has, in the event of a conflict with designs, who ultimately has that final say on this is what the design will be?
On my property, me. On the city property, Dan, I believe.
Yes. I mean, I think we'll be bringing back the final design to council for your review, but it is intended to be coordinated between the two. So using the same designer, hopefully they'll be relatively straightforward, and obviously we'll bring it back for council to review, and if you have changes, we'll incorporate those.
And then one other question that just popped in my head was, is it gonna, in the event that ADA laws are updated or changed, or those things are required in the new space, is that gonna also be a partnership between the city in implementing those ADA updates, or is it gonna be dependent on the space in which those updates are necessary?
It's a good question. So for the most part, ADA requirements are requirements as of being built, and then subsequent requirements get implemented should changes occur. So we would be building to the current code, to the most up-to-date code. If things get changed, a lot of times things get grandfathered in. However, if there was a substantial project done that would change it, it would then get re-updated. And on our site, it would be us. And on the city side, it would be the city.
Just to add to that, so in the conceptual design, we're actually removing hopefully curb lines. Yeah. And so actually improving ADA access to the site from the parking lot, as well as some of those ramps that are currently accessing the site will also need to be basically redone. And so they'll be brought up to current ADA standards. So it'll actually be an improvement for the access to the site.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to see the project as it continues to progress. So thank you for your time.
I'll just add real quick that we have worked very hard to try to make everything as ADA accessible as possible. So we're going to be adding a ramp from the Salt Springs Alley that is currently not available, so that you can access the site. The site itself, to get from the parking lot into the space, will be barrier-free, no stairs. I mean, that was like a requirement on my end. So I appreciate the question.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Del Orco, any questions or comments? You have 5 minutes.
Yeah, my first question is for the city manager, and I don't mean to put you on the spot. If you don't have the information, that's perfectly okay. In the examples given of Imagine and Lee Bear, do we know what those tax abatements amounted to and over what period of time, by chance?
Sure. I mean, Lee Bear probably would have been the industrial facilities exemption, slightly different act, and that's a 50% exemption over a period of 12 years.
Okay.
That was, I have not seen the numbers, but much more significant than what's proposed here. Similarly, Imagine probably was a commercial rehabilitation act. That's one of the same acts that we plan on utilizing for this site. There is actually at the state level right now, they're renewing the act, so we're hopefully that happens soon because the expiration date had passed, but we're working, and our state legislator indicated it would be. That again depends on the value of the taxable value of the improvement. I, again, have not seen the numbers, but I imagine theater was a higher value improvement, and so that was a larger abatement as well. This is relatively small compared to those two.
Okay, that's the main thing I wanted to get at. And Mr. Kinley, for the MEDC restrictions on the caps for how profitable it can be before it's no longer a need-based, is there a comfortable window there, or is it really tight? How the sliver of this window of opportunity that you're talking about? I don't have a conceptualized time frame in how this is fitting into the equation.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you it's confusing. And for the most part, the way that the bank looks at this is they say, okay, how much debt are you paying for, right? You take out money, and let's say you're paying debt on $100,000, right? That you pay $100,000. They say you have to have an income of 1.2 to that. So you'd have to have an income of 120,000. The MEDC says the most you can have is 130,000.
Oh.
So you have a window that is actually pretty tight. And currently, on I think it's a 20-year cash flow, we are at 1.24. And so we actually, at certain points, actually dip below 1.2. And should we not get the tax freeze, it would average, I think, 1.11.
Okay. So it really is the case that without the tax freeze, it's no longer a viable project, it sounds like.
Yeah, and that sliver's tight, right? You have a small window within which, because the MEDC doesn't want to give people $1.5 million or more and have those people walk away $1.5 million richer just because they got the money, right?
Right, just because they could.
That's what they look at with a very fine-tooth comb. And they go through your numbers really diligently. I mean, they're looking at every aspect of the pro forma. It's operating expenses, it's income projections. I mean, they'll look at it and say that looks high, that looks low. I don't know about this. And so I've gone through it in great detail with their essentially auditors, and they're great. I mean, they're very rational, but they will say this doesn't look right, and then you work with them.
And what type of projects are receiving the designation of regional impact? Is that something on a much larger scale?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, this is going to be roughly a $6 million project, and there are like $40 million projects that they turned down and said that's not big enough.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was a bit surprised that our representatives say, hey, go for it, knowing what I do now. But here we are.
Okay. Well, it sounds like the MEDC is truly in the intent of making this an economic stimulus for the grants that they fund. And I would like to see this project move forward. It seems like it could be just a shot in the arm that the downtown area needs, and it would potentially be transformative for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Delorco. Councilmember Dillon, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. I just want to start by saying, Mr. Kinley, thank you. You and I got an opportunity to sit down and talk for several hours the other day about the project. So most of my questions are going to be geared more towards city stuff. But I will start with asking, so the drawing that's on the board right now seems different from the previous page, and understanding how does that look compared to the initial drawings that we saw? Like, what's been cut out of your project cost-wise as far as the green space?
Well, on our site, one of the challenges has been I wanted to do turf grass, and I don't know if that's going to be financially feasible anymore, so it's probably going to be just grass or a hardscape that's a little more economical. There were other additions onto the city property that we were going to fund with that extra money. It was essentially all going to be going towards that public space. I was going to put a decent amount of it onto Mac's patio. I think we had talked about, that you'd seen a larger structure there, more of a covering, really enlivening the outside. Very little has changed to the apartments or the exterior steel. Those remain. But we have simplified some of the public space. But frankly, I don't think we're losing a lot, because a lot of that the vitality and the vibrance that comes from it really comes from creating the space that's planned, that's programmed, and you don't necessarily need to overbuild it to make it wonderful.
Thank you very much for that. And so most of my questions, like I said, will be directed towards you, Mr. Swallow. And you and I have mentioned this before. I've mentioned it to you. Why is it that this project doesn't need to go through planning? Because it seems as though the green space is a significant change from the original site plan for this project.
So obviously, there's the existing development out there currently. And, there's not any additional parking, there's not additional utilities, there's not, some of the additional municipal services that, would be required for a full site plan review. So we are actually discussing, we believe that it qualifies for administrative review so the city will be reviewing it, the community development department will be reviewing it, and it's at their discretion. They could forward it on to planning commission as well.
Okay, because the original, am I correct in saying that the original site plan included another building, which is where the green space is going to be?
I do understand there was a previous site plan that did not move forward.
Right. So, okay. So I'd like to understand that a little better. So,
Just real quick,
yes.
Can I just ask that this is without the city portion shown, that was developed a little bit after. This essentially is what we took forward a year ago. We didn't have any additional buildings when we talked about it a year ago.
No, I'm talking about when this property was initially developed.
Oh, I see. Sure.
Way back.
Sure.
So just understanding that. And so, Mr. Swallow, you've talked about having this development agreement. And I guess I would like to understand, we keep moving down this path, but we've not seen what that agreement looks like. And one of the biggest pieces to it is who controls the space. And really understanding, we keep saying, oh, this is a public gathering space. Well, it's actually private property. And so understanding who controls that, how can it be used? And I know we've had discussions among ourselves, but understanding that in writing of what that's going to be and what that's going to cost the city. We've talked about now leasing this property. Is that $1 a year or is that a significant dollar amount? Just so that we're all on the same page as we keep getting closer to these deadlines. I'd like to understand, if we're saying that this is going to be moving forward at the beginning of May, at what point is this stuff coming to council?
So there's two parts that we have to look at. One is just once we understand the design of it and how it's going to be built out, just committing, to the city will do X in terms of, the development of the public space, and the private developer do Y, the development of the private property. So that's kind of just defining what's going to complete it and how it will be coordinated. Secondarily to that, we do need a use or a lease agreement with Praxis Properties, and we've talked about what would go into that lease agreement and how it would be handled, whether it's whether Praxis Properties handles the management or basically the maintenance of it, or the city handles that. We are still in negotiations of that, and you're right, we need to bring that to a conclusion. But obviously, we want to handle design first and understand what it's going to be before we really get into who's going to manage which piece of it.
Okay.
I got to stop you there. That's 5 minutes, but we'll have time probably for a second round. Mr. Gearbaugh, you have 5 minutes if you'd like it.
Thank you. I do like this project. I think it's going to be interesting to come forward. I need to abstain from this because of my continued interest in the reverter clause on the existing property, pending legal actions, and what potentially could be a financial impact on myself. So at this point, I won't be asking any more questions.
Fair enough. Thank you for noting that for the record. Councilmember Rice, you have 5 minutes.
Thanks so much, Tyler, for bringing this to us. The one question it's not really a question, I kind of just want to lead a conversation about what the benefits to those who are currently renting from you or those who will potentially rent from you, should we approve this tax freeze for 10 years? What does that look like for your renters? Will you then have the ability to, say this property is assessed and it's activated and it's busy, will you have the ability to sort of maintain rent levels, things like that? One of the things that we get from the community is that, do too much, you might price people out. So what does that look like from you as a property manager?
Well, our rental projections aren't, the tax freeze is a request because the rental projections are what they are, and the rental projections are based entirely on current leases, and they don't have any exorbitant bumps because we couldn't bump them. Frankly, if we started to bump every rent, we would just start losing tenants. We haven't really lost tenants due to rent increases in large part because we've worked with tenants, but also Saline's rent, for the most part, has stayed pretty steady over the last 20 years. And it comes down to, if the rent's too high, a tenant will say, I can't pay this, and they'll either close or we'll adjust it. And we've adjusted a lot of rents to do so. Part of the reason we're doing this is to try to add vibrancy to a downtown to allow the tenants to prosper more. And only then could you see rent increases. I think the rent will often reflect the vibrancy of a downtown. And you see that when you go to downtown Chelsea or downtown Dexter, which they've done quite well in the last 10 years. And their rent for downtown space is 1.5 or 2 times our rent right now. So we do not have any major rental bumps planned because it simply wouldn't work.
Thanks for that. One of the things that I've been really excited about for this space is that kind of ability to use space that just hasn't been, it's not been used. It's, we stand back there and we look at it and we realize how much space there actually is, but we just walk past it. Otherwise, we don't think about it. So I really appreciated you kind of getting us out there, and I recommend that the community do that. Obviously, it's cruddy outside, not right now, but even as construction starts, walk past there and take a look at the scale of this is actually a lot larger than I think what some people see. So when you look at the city investing $500,000, yes, that's a significant chunk of money. But in the grand scheme of things, this is what the community has been asking us for so long. And your ability to kind of mesh with what the community wants is saving us a ton of money. We would never be able to do this on our own. So the city investing $500,000 into this is almost a miracle. Like, we would not have been able to do this in any of the other spaces that we've talked about on Hall Street, in the other parking lot. It would have been significantly more than that. So just, for the benefit of the community, I wanted to bring that up, because when we look at these numbers and we talk about, freezing taxes and things like that, the benefit to the community, the benefit to the businesses that are going to be there, the traffic increases that they're going to see, sales increases, things like that, I really believe very strongly in that. So, if the community has any additional input that they want to provide to this, or questions, do you have some availability to perhaps sit down with the community and chat this out?
I'm happy to. This is what I'm doing all the time.
That's great.
And you may randomly see me walking around there just meandering and looking at stuff, just because I'm trying to do the same thing, right? Like envisioning what could be. There's a lot of potential. We've already seen some success from it. Across the street, we leased a new space to a new company called Miss Mercantile, who was considering going to Howell. And when I told her about this and showed her the plans, she was like, "Oh my God, this is awesome. I'd like to come here." We just leased vacant space at 101. So right when you walk through the space, the vacant space there, to Boulevard Market. So we leased it to them last week. They'll be opening soon, and they're coming because of this. So people are excited. Retail is excited about this, and that's the whole point.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Again, I appreciate that you're the kind of the face for this and you're willing to be the face for this. And I do encourage the community, if they see you out and about, to chat with Tyler. I've learned so much more about how this all works and understanding the value that we're committing towards this project and how we're going to see that value over the next 10 to 20 years. I mean, we've already had other developers talking about, being excited about this project, because then they're going to get excited about their own project. So, yeah, I appreciate the update. Really looking forward to seeing some more tangible things. I know this past year has been paperwork galore, so thanks for that.
Thanks, Councilmember Rice. I'm going to have to stop it there. That's about 5 minutes. Councilmember Harmont, you have 5 minutes if you'd like it.
Yep. Yes, so this is a social gathering space.
Right.
And I know that we talked about the purpose of what we're looking for from a social gathering space, and I would want to make sure that the plans incorporate the activities that we plan on doing in this space. And we talked about some of the questions. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I know sometimes I have a lot of questions and we talked about, but just to kind of go through some of the questions that I had that we talked about was just to bring for the community's efficacy. We talked about restrooms, and you said that we have access. There would be access to restrooms. We talked about lighting and safety and how that would be addressed, and we talked about stage programming and how that would be addressed with with the incorporation of Main Street. And I know we're going to get a little bit more into what the leasing portion of that looks at. When we talk about, like, when people keep referring to this as a green space, I'm assuming we're talking about the turf or grass. And I just want to say, 2 questions for the city manager. One is, if we're going to be talking about maintaining grass, I'd like to make sure that we're not in a lull where it's going to turn into a mud puddle if people are there. And then the question is if we're looking at the maintenance of the grass versus the cost of the turf. I understand the cost of the turf is more expensive, but we also need to look at the cost of the maintenance and the manpower of the maintenance, so that we're weighing those 2 things equally. And the final one thing I want to ask the city manager is it feasible that we can transform the city's portion of this for $500,000?
Yeah, so just to address the maintenance question first, we actually had a productive meeting with the city engineer as well as DPW deputy superintendent to go over kind of stormwater drainage to make sure we understood that, so it doesn't turn into a quote-unquote mud pit. So that is being carefully looked at as part of the beginning part of this. Obviously, we're also, as part of the kind of that use agreement, that's one of the things we're still discussing is, does it make sense to have the private entity, Praxis Properties maintain it, and maybe we contribute to that, or is it city maintaining it? So those are some of the discussions that are going on currently. So we're trying to nail that down. Is $500,000 enough budget to complete all the public space improvements? We don't have, detailed designs yet, so it's hard to predict. I could see this, exceeding that number and having to take a closer look at that. But right now, we believe it's, certainly adequate for some of the basic improvements that are planned. It really gets into, if you've been back there, some of the steps, some of the planter beds or things are in really bad shape. How much of that do we have to replace could increase that cost. But it's replacing existing stuff or areas that already need work.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, because I know when we talked about this, 500 was a stretch for us because we were more comfortable around the 250 range before. So I just want to make sure that this stays on track with what we originally budgeted. And then with regards to the Imagine, the precedents that have been set for tax abatement with Imagine, was that for 10 years as well?
Yes.
Okay. That's all I have.
Yeah. I will say just one thing to address the cost. Part of the thing that I was excited about with the city property is that a lot of it is already usable as pedestrian space, right? It is hardscape currently. And so if you wanted to keep some of it and just focus on certain parts, I think you could still achieve the goal. And you could also phase in any changes, right? So once this is created, there is an opportunity to continue to build on it should you want to.
So if we're talking about, we talked about programming this for the music series or for, I don't know, farmer's market or whatever, but a lot of those type of venues or those type of events are going to need some sort of stage. So being purposeful about what we're going to use the space for to make sure it's not an afterthought where we're going to, where are we going to put a stage, or we're thinking about, how is it going to be covered if we have people? Does it need to be permanent, or can it be like a temporary? And you had mentioned that portion of it is going to be on the city's portion to pay for, or was I wrong about that?
Well, I'm happy to get into detail, but currently I would envision there being a few different sort of event sizes. And so on our portion, if you look at wherever you're looking, the leftmost portion of the current grassy area, I could see the paved area there becoming a stage that is a walkway, but it's extended and flat, and you would have electrical outlets and the opportunity for sort of a temporary overhang that could be created into a stage for a medium to small scale event. And for a stage that you'd want for a much larger event, I don't think you'd necessarily want to build one permanently because of the cost and the sort of lack of use overall, right? And so to me, that would still be probably putting in a temporary stage that's much larger, and you could easily do that in the turnaround spot right here where the car is that plays back to the whole space. So I think that we're trying to, essentially that's what we're talking about when we're planning the space and trying to create it, is how do we work with Saline Main Street, the chamber, the city, to talk through what events could be here, how could we best put them in a flexible way so that it's not a massive stage dominating it, and yet it can still host those events.
Thank you, Councilmember Harmon. Councilmember Dillon, did you have some additional questions?
I did, just very quickly. Just for clarification, City Manager, when we're talking about the task request, the $250,000 approximate tax abatement over 10 years, are we doing that as a per year, or is it a lump sum up front?
So the way, basically, there's no cash that is transferred. It's basically just a reduction in the tax bill, and so that would occur each year.
Okay, just clarifying that. The one thing that the design is the design, and we can work through it. And this is part of the conversation that Mr. Kinley and I had, is that I think less is more because it gives a lot more flexibility. I think that was the one huge flaw when we were looking at the parking lot across the street, was we were just, there were rock walls and swings, and there was just way too much stuff. And we kind of get caught up in that. So I like the blank canvas approach to it. The one thing I will say about design that makes me very nervous is that you are still indicating that the roadway is going to be a loading, unloading. Now we're going to have a zero entry of no curb. We'll have some balusters there to separate, traffic from pedestrians. And I assume that those balusters will go up and down to activate more of that parking lot space, that brown space where there's a car. But in the meantime, what I'm concerned about is the actual safety of that. And, we've all just seen that somebody drove through a baluster at the airport. Are we sure that that's the right safety measure of having pedestrians and automobiles in such close proximity?
So obviously, the balusters could be removed if need be, but they would be mostly in place throughout most of that. And they're designed to obviously stop a vehicle. If someone decided to speed through intentionally, that could be an issue. The other thing that we talked about during events that we would close off a portion of that parking lot to basically prevent cars from going through that area.
Okay. I just want to make sure, and this was a big part of the conversation that we had, is that we're very thoughtful on the city's aspect. What Mr. Kinley does with his properties, what he does with his property. I appreciate the input that he's allowing the city to have in that. In ours, I want to be very mindful of the surrounding properties and that parking lot of what is the long-term vision. because it's a weirdly designed parking lot in that we've got the alleyway entrance, we have a bank that has a drive-through that still needs an access point, we have loading, unloading, we have a lot of different pieces going on. And so I'm hoping that in this Beckett and Rader study, it's going to show us what exactly is the best way to utilize that space, and how to utilize it in a safe manner. So when will we expect to start seeing those Beckett and Rader reports coming through?
So we had a design meeting the other day to talk through, kind of, this is how we are going to alter the conceptual drawing here. Thankfully, they do have, some basis to start with that was done prior to. So I think we'll see that within probably the next month, what that looks like. Now, they're not, going to take a look at the other portion of the parking lot necessarily. They look at the access points, as you mentioned, by the bank, et cetera, to make sure those still function. But we'll start to see that within a month.
Okay. Then I would be remiss because sort of, the elephant in the room that nobody is talking about right now is the gearbox issue. And when is council going to be brought into the loop and understand what that issue is and if there's a price tag attached to it? I mean, I just feel like we're looking at things in a lot of different pieces, but we're not seeing the whole picture at this point to understand what we're committing to.
I think Councilor Gearboss shared what he could at this point in time. There is a right of reverter that was established years ago when the city purchased the property. And so we are working through that and what that value is for that. And again, that's something that we're going to have to work closely with the other party. And we can't reveal a lot of that at this point.
No, exactly, but I think that council needs, this is a major factor in decision-making. And so at some point, all this information needs to funnel to council to understand. One of the last things I will say about it is that when we were talking about this project initially, a representative from Gunther Properties came and spoke with us and said, well, if you do this, we're going to do 147. We're going to start building on that. This is what we need. And so understanding, has there been any conversations with Gunther about whether they are going to activate their property?
So I have not had direct conversation with Gunther, but I have secondhand information that yes, they are continuing to take a look at this investment as a catalyst for what they want to do further, obviously to the west there.
Okay.
So there's definitely ongoing interest in that, and they have been in contact, with the city and other representatives.
Okay. I'm very optimistic that we're going to work through all of these details and that this is going to be a very successful project. I think that it's something that's going to benefit our community long term. I just think that right now we all need to be on the same page and make sure that we're working together for the same goal.
Anything else you'd like to add, my friend?
No, I really appreciate everybody. I mean, we're incredibly excited about this. And frankly, Jermaine, you...
I would be remiss. I've heard 3 of my colleagues say that it was hard to make the investment in something that was presented to us with a clearly outlined plan, with a clearly outlined timeline, and with clear guidelines as to the road to completion. And it was hard to invest $500,000, but we're voting on an acquisition of $3 million with no plan. So my question is, what was hard about this decision that wasn't hard about the decision we're making tonight?
Go ahead, if you have anything else you'd like to add.
Not to that.
No, just in closing.
In closing, I appreciate everybody's time. I mean, we have been working on this for multiple years. It is a passion project as much as anything else. And again, I just appreciate everybody's attention to it. And we're going to keep working at it. We're available whenever. So we'll be around.
Very good. Thank you, Tyler. Appreciate your leadership on this. Look forward to continuing the dialogue. An important project, timely project, and like I said, glad it's finally coming to fruition. We come to the first public comment period. This is limited to agenda items. Under the Open Meetings Act, any person may come forward at this time, make comment or question on an item that appears on this agenda. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Those wishing to speak are requested but not required to state their name and address for the record. Before you begin your comments, please clearly state the specific agenda item you're addressing. Please note that council does not answer questions during this public comment period. Are there any citizen comments on agenda items this evening? Mary, please. You will have 3 minutes once you begin. Is there anybody else in the audience after Mary? Clerk Royal, did we receive any written comments? Okay. Please proceed, Mary.
Thank you. For the record, I'm Mary Detling of Saline Main Street, and on behalf of Saline Main Street, I just want to say how incredibly excited we are about the Town Square project coming to downtown Saline. We can't wait to see this happen, to see this vision become reality, and honestly, we're already thinking about the possibilities. Like Tyler said, we are working together to figure out what the best areas and space and setup will be for the Salty Summer Sounds concert series, as well as other events that we really want to see happen there in the near future. But this space is going to give us new opportunities to bring people together in the heart of our city. So we're also thrilled to see this unprecedented investment in our downtown. Investments like this send a clear message that our community believes in a vibrant, thriving downtown and wants to see it grow and succeed. That kind of commitment is powerful, and it sets the stage for a strong future for our businesses and residents alike. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Mary. Appreciate your comments. Would you like to comment? Go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
I just want to make sure, and I think I overheard you guys say that 2623 was removed from the consent agenda, removed from the agenda tonight altogether, because it's still on this agenda.
We haven't gotten to that part yet, the agenda. We're not there yet, but I believe it will be removed.
Okay. Great.
Any additional citizen comments? Okay, then we proceed with the consent agenda. The following consent agenda will normally be adopted without discussion. However, at the request of any citizen or council member, any item be removed from the consent agenda. I believe that agenda item 26-23 will be removed tonight and will come back at a subsequent meeting. And I believe that Mayor Pro Tem Dillon, or excuse me, Councilmember Dillon, wanted 26-20 removed and placed under new business. Is that correct?
Correct.
Is there a motion then to approve the consent agenda as amended? So moved. Moved by Gearbaugh. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Harmount. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as amended signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Ayes have it. The motion carries unanimously. The first item under new business now is 26-20 Davenport-Curtiss House Working Group. This will be a motion to create the working group for the Davenport-Curtiss House and to appoint the members as recommended by Mayor Morrow. Would you move to create and to appoint, Mr. Delorco?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Rice. My memo pretty much speaks for itself, but I'm happy to address any questions, concerns that council members may have. Go ahead.
Thank you. Just very quickly, what I wanted to make sure is that this body is setting up some parameters in which we'd like that committee to be working on, like specific buckets of direction and timelines associated. I'm very concerned with right now, the only thing that's in there is an end date of 3 years. I feel like there needs to be benchmarks, there needs to be report outs, there needs to be other aspects of this, because if we are going to exit at some point, it would be nice to know in advance, or if there is a different direction in which the group thinks that this needs to go, just having that timeline and understanding. We've looked at, options A, B, and C. A, we know is off the table, and understand that right up front. So I would like to have a more concise understanding timeline for what this body expects from the working group.
Assuming that the motion passes this evening, I believe we have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow with some key stakeholders, and we can certainly talk about benchmarking some goals and objectives and identifying some clear guidelines for the committee moving forward. I would note that as part of the memo between council members Gearbaugh and Delorco, they are to provide reports to this body and to the community when appropriate. It's also further required that a comprehensive report be provided to the community and council at the 6-month mark, which would be August of this year, and then no less than one annual report in the subsequent first quarter of every succeeding year, which would include 2027 and 2028, and then hopefully we would have a final recommendation and report out from the body by February of 2029. And that I should also note that in the memo it does talk about doing surveys, polls, and community engagement when appropriate to identify the thoughts and opinions of those that we represent in the community, both business owners and private citizens. Any additional questions? No? Any comments? I'll start on the end with Harmount and then jump to Rice.
I agree with Councilmember Cullen. I'd like to see maybe that we utilize the subcommittee process that I created so that we understand what the criteria is being judged by for the options that we're looking at. And then also there's an area in there to get, stakeholder feedback so we'd understand who is being involved and what kind of feedback we're soliciting. So if we're missing anything, we have an option to get weigh in on that. I see a lot of really familiar faces that are on the working group. I just was curious, was there a certain criteria you were looking for as far as judging the members that were on the working group appointed?
Well, first and foremost, for this particular group, I tried to meet with or chat by phone every individual who was not up for consideration, but a viable candidate for appointment, because I wanted to stress the time commitment and level of engagement that I was expecting and that I ultimately think council and the community is expecting. At first blush, as I've said previously, the amount of work that lies ahead for this group and for the broader community is pretty overwhelming. Now, I'm optimistic that it can be done, but there's a lot of work ahead. So, one, I was emphasizing or determining rather, that each individual was going to invest the appropriate amount of time and be engaged, that they were passionate about the subject, then that they brought some additional acumen to the table. So organizational management, strategic planning, event planning, finance, community engagement, et cetera. So I would say the criteria was really threefold. Had the time, was going to invest robustly their time and energy into the project. They had a passion for historic preservation and preserving this iconic, one-of-a-kind asset. And then third, that they brought another skill set or expertise to the table that would enrich the decision-making process.
And then the follow-up is that will they be utilizing the subcommittee report-out process I created?
We can certainly discuss that at the organizational meeting that we have later this week and at the working group's first regular meeting, which I hope to be convened probably next week or the following.
Thank you.
Councilmember Rice?
Yeah, I was just going to ask of my council colleagues, Mr. Gearbaugh and Mr. Delorco, to remind council that you are sitting on this committee and check in with us, and then we can do the same as we, as members of council, when we have council members sitting on these subcommittees or these task forces, we're reliant upon them to kind of, guide the groups as far as the strategic plan of the city and what the goals of the city are. But at the same time, as council members who aren't in part of that committee, the responsibility on us to keep in touch with you all and say, here's something that I've seen or have questions, things like that. So I think the responsibility goes both ways. I like that we have two council members sitting on this committee because I think that helps drive the boat toward the city's mission. So I feel that this is a good group put together. And then as a reminder, the mayor and I talked about this, this committee can also have subcommittees with other experts. So if there's a certain project you're looking at, or if there's a certain activity you want to do, or a group that that has helped funded these things before, you can have other people involved in this. It doesn't just have to be on the shoulders of these committee members. These are just experts within our community or people who had passion with our community, but use their connections as well to bring people into this group. So I think this is a great group of citizens who have really broad expertise, but also really care about this community and will do the best that they can for this.
Very good. Councilmember Gearbaugh.
I just wanted to say that, effectively have been able to bring information back to council, generally from all the committees I've been in. And, we haven't had that success with some committees in the past. So I'd like to say that, just for clarification, it said the first quarter. Do we need to report back in April? And then we have also August 26th, the first quarter of each calendar year.
Yeah, no,
I think that would be great for us, to at least, and talking to our chair, that we would bring back an initial report. So that may answer Councilmember Dillon's.
Yeah, I think that's a fine idea. I don't see a problem with that. I'm not sure you're going to have a ton of tangible information to share by the end of March, but I think we could probably arrange to be on the second agenda in March 2026 to provide an initial update as to the group's activities. I would note too, and this is a wonderful thing. I mentioned it in the memo. Actually, I'll go back to the consent agenda. Tonight, with the appointment to the Zoning Board of Appeals, all of our board and commission positions are filled in the city of Saline, which is wonderful, and that has not always been the case. For this particular working group, the advertisement or promotion went out about 2 weeks ago, and it was always my desire to establish a group of between 7 and 9 members. I think generally when you get above 9, it becomes a little bit unwieldy and unmanageable. We had, I think, 22 applications turned in, which is wonderful. So there is interest and enthusiasm for this project initiative. And I will note, assuming the motion is approved this evening, I'll be forwarding all the applications on to the chair and to the committee. And I think most of those people will be able to be engaged and may subsequently be appointed to subcommittees if the group decides to establish them. Additional questions or comments, Councilmember Halsch?
Yeah, I have a question. Excuse me. Mayor, as a part of that community engagement, is there any intent or any plans for the final recommendations of the working group to be put to a public vote?
That would be something that the Davenport-Curtiss working group would have to debate and determine, and then a recommendation would come to this body. And if the body wanted to proceed with a public vote or some sort of poll or survey, it could certainly be done.
Okay.
Any additional questions or comments? Debate on the motion? We have a motion on the floor moved by Delorco, seconded by Rice, to create and to appoint. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Ayes have it. And the motion, who is the nay?
I was nay.
2 nays, okay. So the motion carries 5-2. Thank you very much, and congratulations to all of the individuals who are appointed. I actually think the entire group is here this evening. So thank you for your commitment. We will be in touch soon to schedule your first meeting. We move on to agenda 2624, agreement with Public Safety Management Group. This is a motion to acknowledge receipt and to approve or not to approve the 2-year service contract with Public Safety Management Group LLC to provide management service for Washtenaw County Emergency Communication Consortium and the Washtenaw County Project Oversight Committee. Is there a motion?
Move to acknowledge and to approve.
Moved by Gearbaugh to acknowledge and approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Delorco. City Manager Swallow, do you care to make any comment?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is the next step in the process. As you're aware, we approved the agreement with Washtenaw County for the funding for this project. This is to manage basically the 800 megahertz radio system throughout the county that is housed here at the city of Saline, and we basically utilize the Public Safety Management Group to manage that project. And obviously, the pass-through from the county funding then goes to that group. So this would be the agreement for that group to continue for the next 2 years through December 2027. With that, there's also a fee that the city will receive $2,000 a year to help administer that contract. So
Very good. Are there questions? I'll start with Mr. I'll go Gearbaugh. I think I'm going to go in order of the hands I saw. I'm going to go Gearbaugh, Dillon, Parnell, Halsch.
Just a couple questions on when you're reading through this, and it talks about our projects include the Apex radios and the fire and emergency and 800 megahertz system notification pager system. Some of these items seem like they've been on here for a while. Or is this a new contract, or is it just a review of the same old contract? I feel like they're
the previous agreement.
Okay, so some of these projects haven't been completed yet? I don't know.
I can't tell you for sure. My understanding is that they're all still active.
All right. It just seems I wasn't sure why. Can we get clarification?
Can you confirm Mr. Gearbaugh's point and disseminate that information via your weekly communique?
And then the only other thing, it'd be interesting, it talks about reports and some of that type of information. I don't believe we've seen some of that. And it'd be, if we could actually receive one or two of those documents to understand exactly what is being achieved and what's happening. Thank you.
Did I say Dylan next?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Just for clarification, when we talk, on our cover sheet memo, and it says amendment required, and it says yes. So why are we operating this at a loss of 3,000? Is that what that's implying?
So basically, because this comes with the calendar year, we budget obviously in our fiscal year, July 1st, so there is an increase on this particular contract. So we are receiving the funding from the county, the full amount. However, our budget needs to be amended basically because we're starting mid-year.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Councilmember Harmount.
So for contract increases that are forecasted, are there caps or cost controls on that? Do we have any control over, is there any sort of indication about how that can be escalated or capped?
The short answer is obviously this is somewhat a negotiation with the county because they're the funding agent and the funding comes through basically the millage from the county. So there's no additional expense to the city. We're really a pass-through agent for that, but yes, we are involved in that discussion to make sure that the city is made whole by the funding through Washington County.
And along with with Dean's question, is that are we going to be having reports and direct reporting about the performance?
I'll speak to Mr. Swenson specifically about that. Obviously, he does work closely with our police department. Chief Radzik does receive, informal reports. But if you'd like more formal reports to council, I'd make that request, and I don't see an issue with it.
Councilmember Hulsh.
My question, I just have one question. With the working meeting and the fire board, will there be at any point at which there is any kind of conflict between the ultimate establishment of the fire authority and our sort of renewal of this agreement? And that will the fire authority potentially either need to make that decision or come to the table when we make this decision?
The short answer is no, it will not have impact on the fire authority. This is a separate agreement that handles all the communications for all of the emergency services throughout the county. Saline Area Fire Department from it, and the authority will also benefit through their, through the cooperation across the county on emergency communication. So I don't see any negative impact with the form of the authority. Possibly just obviously the same individuals be involved. Just make sure that they make the connection with this group.
Okay, thanks. Any additional questions or comments? Any discussion on the motion? It's been properly moved by Gearboss, seconded by Del Orco to acknowledge and to approve. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Ayes have it. The motion carries unanimously. And moving on to new business item 26-25, biosolids contract. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the memorandum and to approve or not to approve the contract with Biotech Ergonomics for a 3-year term for land application biosolids at a rate of 0.0526 to 0.0558 per gallon, ranging from 2026 through 2028, plus sampling and testing as required, as stated in the attached proposal.
Acknowledge and approve.
Moved by Gearboss to acknowledge and to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Harmount. City Manager Swallow, anything you would like to add for the public's benefit?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is really a renewal of a contract we have with Biotech. We've utilized them for the past 3 years. We're proposing to utilize them for the next 3 years. They are a reputable company. Our experience has been good with them. Basically, just to make sure we're still receiving competitive pricing, we did put out request for proposals to the competitors in the area that service this area. So obviously, Nutrigo was the one competitor we did receive counter proposal from. This is the lower cost proposal and a recommendation to continue with Biotech Agronomics.
Very good. Are there questions for the City Manager? Council members Harmount, and then I'll jump to Del Orco.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for answering my last minute questions. I'm sorry I didn't get those to you a little bit earlier. Some of the questions that, just for the public's sake, some of the questions that I asked were, is it with this difference, is there any sort of indemnification or any sort of coverage? Are we leaving ourselves at risk? And your response was no, that we have the right coverage, and we have, and you weighed some of the capacity questions that I had, so thank you for that.
Yeah, so they basically, this company, as well as their competitor, but this company actually has higher limits for liability insurance as well as environmental liability insurance. You know, God forbid something did slip through the system and was applied to the land, had to be removed, there is insurance to cover that eventuality.
Additional questions from the dais? Mr. Delarico?
My question is for City Manager. It focuses around if there are any changes to the upgraded facility that would increase the volume of biosolids produced as compared to previous years. I know in the past, the Headworks building was sort of a problem because the bar screens allowed too much debris to flow through into the processes of the plant. And we want to prevent that from happening, but now we have to figure out, now that it's catching everything going through, before we were just taking that debris and putting into it a dumpster, and I don't know what the process is now for how to dispose of those things, or if there's any ramifications for generating more of that type of waste.
Yeah, so this is basically the sludge at the end of the process that needs to be disposed of because it can't be processed, you know, in either removal, as you mentioned at the Headworks, with the removal of some of the trash that gets dumped down the sewers. So that should have little or no impact on that. Obviously, we want to remove as much of the trash from the system. This is at the end with the biosolids. And long story short, the new process at the plant should actually reduce our biosolids a little bit because right now a lot of the activity takes place in the rotating biological concentrators and the breakdown of the organics. The new aeration system should actually break down the organics further, so we should have less sludge being produced by the plant. So hopefully we'll see a decrease.
Okay, that's good. And then the only other question I have is relating to, I remember from my prior term on council, there were some potentially pending legislative changes on the horizon that may or may not have prohibited us from continuing the practice of land application and disposal of biosolids in the near future. Are those things kind of fallen off the map now, or are they still being considered?
So based on what I've seen, land application of biosolids is still, proceeding, still being permitted by the state. There was some discussion just because concern for, what could be applied to the land, discontinuing that in the future. That's why in the design of our new wastewater plant, we actually have the capacity to dry the sludge and make what they call cake, which is basically dried sludge, and that can actually be taken to the landfill as opposed to land applied.
Okay, so we have the option to pursue that.
We have the option now with the new plant design, but so far the state has continued to permit biosolid land application.
And the testing of that material is part of what we're paying for in this estimate, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
We test it before, obviously, it leaves the facility to make sure there aren't any contaminants of concern.
Okay. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Councilmember Dillon.
Thank you. Great segue into what my question was going to be, which was about the cake and about disposal, because I thought that was actually a big part of the new plant, was that we were going to start moving in that direction. Is that only going to be the case should we not be able to land apply? Or will we be looking at, do we cost evaluate both processes?
So currently, it is still less expensive to land apply biosolids. Dried as well as are pressed into cake, and then also the landfill rates are generally higher to dispose of material in a landfill. So with the anticipation that the state could act to remove the ability to land apply biosolids, that's why it was incorporated into the design of the new plant to basically produce dry the biosolids and take them to landfill if needed. But right now, it's still more cost effective to go this route.
Okay, I appreciate that. And then my other question, I'd be remiss if I didn't say it because it's sort of a constant theme for me, is once again, we have an expired contract. It seems as though this should have come to us 3 months ago, and sort of understanding we keep allowing contracts to expire before we activate a new one. And this one, it's saying that our contract expired December 31st, and in the Biotech statement, it's showing that the contract duration shall remain in effect from March 1st of 2026. So do we have a 3-month period where we have no contract?
So if you're familiar, obviously, we only take loads out at certain times a year, 3 or 4 times a year. Usually in the spring and the fall are the largest quantities that go out. So we actually do not need this service right now. Obviously, by spring, March 1st, we hope to have this contract in place.
Okay, I appreciate that considering this document is dated November 17th. It seems as though it should be coming to us sooner to make decisions. Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments from the dais? Any debate on the motion? A motion moved by Gearbaugh, seconded by Harmont to acknowledge and to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. We move on to new business item 26-26, budget amendment for purchase of Davenport-Curtiss home. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt and to approve or not to approve the amendment to the general fund budget. Line item 101-900-985-014 by increasing it from $50,000 to $3.1 million for final due diligence and acquisition of the property located at 300 East Michigan Ave, otherwise known as the Davenport-Curtiss home, noting the increase will be allocated from the unassigned fund balance, and further to authorize the city manager to work with city bond council to develop a capital improvement bond issue to finance the purchase of property and reimbursement of the general fund for the purchase price, restoring the unassigned fund balance to the policy directed at 15% to 20% for the annual fund balance expenditures.
Move to acknowledge receipt and to approve, and I would like to add, and further unassign a dollar amount equivalent to reestablish an unassigned fund balance of 15% from legislative initiatives.
Restate that for the clerk's benefit.
I have it written down.
I said, and further unassign a dollar amount equivalent to reestablish in our unassigned fund balance of 15% from legislative initiatives.
And that was an item that we discussed, I believe, at the last meeting, or maybe even at the last 2 meetings. Okay? You clear on that, Clerk Royal? Okay? City Manager, you're good with that? Okay? Everyone clear on that motion? Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Deloric will be the second, noting the added verbiage offered by Mr. Gearbaugh. Thank you. Again, this matter has been not directly discussed, but talked about over the course of the last month. City Manager Swallow, anything you'd like to add?
No, again, this is just making sure we have the budget available and approved by council prior to closing on the Davenport-Curtiss house.
Okay. And again, I would defer to the Deputy City Manager since you worked pretty tirelessly on this initiative over the last, 100 days or so. Anything you'd like to add?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Are there questions from City Council? Councilmember Hulsh.
Thank you, Mayor. Where one of the first things that I noticed is in 26-26, we're increasing from 50,000 to 3,100,000. Where is the additional 100,000 coming from, or where do we incur that cost?
So where we incurred the cost is some of the due diligence. So obviously we had consultants do the environmental review. We had the structural engineer review the structure. We had some other inspectors go through the house. So we have had a number of expenditures related to the due diligence. Whether we'll hit that 100,000 or not, this is a budget amount, and we may have some additional costs, related to closing. So with that, that's where that extra 100,000 is requested. If that makes
sense. I guess what then the follow-up question to that, and maybe we'll get to it in 26-27, is that the bond amount that we're not to exceed is $3,250,000. So again, like, do we need 3.1 or do we need 3.25?
So we need $3 million to close on the house. We need up to $100,000 to complete all the due diligence on the house. And then there was some discussion about having some funding available, and this is an amount not to exceed in the next agenda item, some funding available to make some improvements to the property that may be immediately necessary, being sidewalks, for example, security, those types of things to the house. So the bond notice of intent is set a little bit higher, and that is an amount not to exceed. We don't have to proceed with that amount, but it could be costs associated with the house once we acquire it.
So just for clarification's sake, we're looking at the total estimated financial commitment for our unassigned fines could be upwards to that 3.25 and not the initial 3 million that was presented to council and the public.
total costs for acquisition, closing costs, as well due diligence and potential improvements for the site, yes.
Okay, thank you. Additional questions?
I just have a.
Oh, please, I'm sorry.
A point of clarification. So in that, just to follow up from Councilmember Housh's concern, in that amount that's being allocated, does that include the funds available for engaging professional services like real estate, economic development planning, finance experts that we want to consult with as part of the working group for the Davenport-Curtiss mansion?
So planning could be an eligible expense under there as well, yes.
Okay, so if we need to hire some of these paid professionals, and we're going to have the ability to do that.
Yes.
Okay, great.
I would also assume, Councilmember Delaroco, from conversations I've had with the city manager, we may be making some accommodations in this upcoming budget to reserve and allocate funds for the working group in the years ahead.
Thank you.
Additional discussion on the motion? We're all good? Okay, it's been properly moved by Gearboss, seconded by Delaroco to acknowledge and approve, noting the additional language that was offered by Mr. Gearboss. And again, Clerk Royal, you're clear on the new language? Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay.
Nay.
Ayes have it. Who are the nays? 3 nays, okay? Motion carries 4-3. We move on to new business item 26-27, resolution number 2627, notice of intent for issue of capital improvement, limited tax general obligation bonds for the purchase of the Davenport-Curtiss home. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt and to approve or not to approve resolution number 2627, notice of intent to issue capital improvement, limited tax general obligation bonds for the purchase of the Davenport-Curtiss home in the amount not to exceed $3.25 million, and further to confirm Miller Canfield as the city's bond counsel for the proposed bond issuance in accordance with the attached engagement letter.
Move to acknowledge and to approve.
Moved by Gearboss to acknowledge and to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dillon. Again, I would defer to the city manager. Anything you'd like to add for the public's benefit?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As was discussed during the due diligence and the presentation prior to deciding to acquire the Davenport-Curtiss house, one of the items we looked at was financing to restore the fund balance, make sure there's sufficient fund balance, restore it to our policy guidelines, as well as basically reimburse ourselves for the cost of the acquisition. So this is the first step in issuing capital improvement bonds. We are required under the state law to first issue a notice of intent. So this is, again, what this resolution would accomplish. Subsequent to that, we would advertise in a local paper or paper of local distribution this notice of intent. There's a 45-day referendum period in which time, if there are objections, there could be a petition to basically reject the bond issuance. However, if there is no adequate petition filed, then this would proceed to the next resolution, which would be the bond authorizing resolution, which will come back to City Council before proceeding.
Very good. Questions from the dais? Actually, let me defer first to the Deputy City Manager. Again, you've worked on this initiative. Anything you'd like to add for the public record?
Just note that we would have 18 months once this is, I believe, 18 months to act upon the bonds from the point of this.
Okay, very good. Comments, discussion? Oh, easy enough. All right, moved by Gearboss, seconded by Dillon to acknowledge and to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay.
Nay.
A show of hands was again the 3, okay? Motion carries 4-3. Thank you very much. Moving on, agenda item 26-28, resolution number 26-28, adopting state treasury required deficit elimination plan for sewer fund. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt, to approve or not to approve resolution number 26-28 to adopt the Saline sewer fund deficit elimination plan as required by the Michigan Department of Treasury due to temporary deficit and working capital of the city's sewer fund at the end of 25 fiscal year.
Move to acknowledge, receipt, and approve.
Moved by Gearboss to acknowledge, receipt, and approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Oh boy, I'm going to go with Hulsh on that one. City Manager Swallow, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. This is really an artifact of timing. The issue was when our fiscal year ended in June 30th of 2025. There was a deficit in working capital due to the fact that basically we had paid the contractor at the wastewater treatment plant to complete the work, but had not received the reimbursement from our state revolving fund, our bonds that we issued for the project. So the fund did appear in a negative stance. It was our opinion, this has actually already been corrected. Once we received the funding from the state through the SRF, we are back in positive territory. So it was our opinion we did not need a deficit elimination plan, that had already been resolved. In communications with the state state treasury. They're still requesting us to submit that, and it is required to be reviewed and approved by council.
Very good. And I'd also note for the record that the city treasurer is here. Ms. Finch, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, that's.
Okay. Questions, comments from the dais? I'll start with Del Orco and then jump to Gearbaugh and Harmount.
Yeah, my only question is, we're going to have these bills keep coming at us, so is there a mechanism now in place to have that draw come through before we go into the negative on paying the contractors?
So no, we have to, it's a reimbursement basis. Basically, we have to expend the funds and we submit the reimbursement request to the state. It was really unfortunate timing. As of June 30th, we had a couple of bills, outstanding, and we'd not received reimbursement from the state yet. So it was really, unfortunate timing at the end of the fiscal year.
So is it a one-off, or is this likely to happen again where we're going to have to go through this with the state?
Hopefully it's a one-off and the timing won't hit us. We'll be very careful looking at the end of this fiscal year to make sure when the timing to the payments are going out and when we'll receive reimbursement from the state. So
okay.
We'll make sure that we know that ahead of time.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Gearbaugh.
Just a clarification, was this triggered by our audit? Because we have to submit our audit, and then they reviewed it. So unfortunately, because of the way timing is, it's just a timing thing and it's state's requirement. So thank you.
So as of, again, audit, when it was submitted, uploaded to the state, it showed sewer fund at a negative standpoint, even though it had already been reimbursed from the state and we were already back in positive territory.
Councilmember Harmount.
Does having this the elimination plan impose any restrictions over oversight or reporting requirements that we need to be aware of?
The state does have to approve or certify the plan, and so the only risk is if it's not approved, even though again we're already positive territory. If it's not approved, they could restrict state shared revenue sharing, but at this point, since it's already positive territory, there should be no further reporting.
How would that impact us if that happened?
Well, as long as the plan is approved, then there will be no impact. If they did not approve it for someplace, we'd have to revise it and resubmit.
Thank you.
Councilmember Dillon.
Thank you. Are there any long-term ramifications, short-term ramifications? Like, are we blacklisted on anything? Is there any kind of penalties that we're going to now incur? Not necessarily financial, just as in like our ratings have gone down or anything because of this?
No, as I stated, the state treasury does look at this, so I guess if anything, if they didn't certify it, I guess that would be a concern going forward, but we do anticipate approval from the state.
And how long before they certify it?
I guess we'll submit it hopefully tomorrow, and hopefully they'll be within a couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Additional comments, debate, discussion from the dais?
I just have one quick question. Do we have any, with ClearGov or Asana, do we have anything that would give more visibility into when these things are due? Or kind of when contracts are up, does our IT department, or do we have software that allows us to have visibility into that?
Sure. I mean, we do see the pay applications from the contractors, and we could predict, probably within, every quarter they're going to submit, additional pay applications. But it's dependent on, for example, how much we pay the contractors, obviously dependent on how much work is completed.
Right.
So we do have projections out when things will be completed that we can watch.
Okay. If there's nothing further, we'll call for a vote. It's been properly moved by Gearbaugh, seconded by Halsch to acknowledge and to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Ayes have it. The motion carries unanimously. Final action item of the evening is agenda item 26-29, resolution number 26-29 to authorize execution of the closing documents for the purchase of 300 East Michigan Ave, otherwise known as the Davenport-Curtiss House. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt, to approve or not to approve resolution number 26-29 to authorize execution of the closing documents for the purchase of 300 East Michigan Avenue, otherwise known as the Davenport-Curtiss House.
I will move to acknowledge and approve.
Thank you,
Second.
Mr. Gearbaugh, seconded by Dillon. Again, I would defer to the city manager. This one's pretty cut and dry, but if there's anything you'd like to add for the public record, we would welcome that.
It's officially authorization from council to complete the closing for the Davenport-Curtiss House, and some of the documentation does also authorize the city manager to sign if needed.
Very good. Deputy City Manager Cole, again, anything you'd like to add on this subject?
Thank you.
Okay. I'd just like to acknowledge the efforts of staff and my colleagues, and also the cooperation we received from the Curtis Richards family. Consensus has now been reached. I'm excited to move forward and close on this property. I'm also excited that earlier this evening, Council, by a 5-2 vote, established a Davenport-Curtiss House working group. They have a lot of work ahead of them, but it is a wonderful group of dedicated and talented community members, and I'm really optimistic. I think they're going to hit the ground running probably next week, and I look forward to assisting them in their efforts. As was stated, I think, by one of my colleagues a few weeks ago, I think we all have a role to play in this process moving forward, and I hope everyone is committed to making this a successful process and trying our best to turn this into a viable community asset that can be not only sustainable but enjoyed by Saline residents for generations to come. Additional discussion from the dais. Councilmember Hulsh.
So I first wanted to say that I am fully invested in making sure that this project is a success. I'm fully invested in seeing the working group do all the great things that they were appointed to do. The question that I asked earlier didn't come from just anywhere. The reason why I asked the question of what was difficult about making the decision with the downtown space and the ease with which it seems we've made this decision, because when I look at the green space, I think that there's a lot that we as a city should learn, especially when a lot of the suggestions that I've heard about how we move forward with the rec center, with the Davenport House, is through public and private partnerships. And so I know there was a chuckle, but my question really is, how do we, moving forward, ensure that the due diligence with citizens, that we are getting citizen input? How are we going to make sure that this doesn't happen the next time we have to spend, say, on the dam or on the rec center? I open that question to council. I open that question to deputy city manager and city manager. I don't feel as though there's been accountability to citizens for the lack of input that citizens had in the decision. And what I find funny is that I bet that if the citizens had been polled and asked, that an overwhelming majority of them would have supported this. But it's hard, as someone who is radically transparent and believes in the radical transparency of the job that we have to do up here, it's hard for me to support this when it seems like, hey, we're just going to make the decisions in the vacuum and the citizens will deal with it. So my question, and I really hope I get an answer, is moving forward, how is this body going to ensure that before we spend $3 million something, before we go into debt, that we know that it is at the mandate of our citizens?
And I can attempt to answer that. I think the short answer is we'll never know for sure, that short of, put out to a vote, if you will. And that is obviously not feasible for every decision that this body has to make.
Right.
And so we are a representative democracy, if you will, even at the local level here. And it's incumbent upon, I think, council members, incumbent upon our committee and commission members, incumbent upon myself to try and seek that public input throughout the process. I know I attended a number of public events where this was a topic of conversation, and I attempted to answer those questions. It was at the senior breakfast and day at the senior center, a couple of coffee hours, as well as just in my interactions with members of the public. So I think we all have to make that effort in trying to get feedback from our constituents on decisions we make, and we can't always have 100% knowledge of, do they fully support this or not.
Right. Okay.
The only thing I would add, if I may, Mr. Gerba, with respect, I don't agree with the characterization. Let me answer your initial question, and I'm only speaking for myself here. I did not have any difficulty coming to a conclusion on the proposed downtown gathering space. I've been enthusiastic about it. I think it is a wise allocation of resources. This has been a goal of our community for many generations, and we're not only getting a green space, but new housing downtown and a net positive of one additional business, with most of the expense being incurred by a private developer. So I think it's a phenomenal initiative, and I've been enthusiastic since it was first proposed. Again, I appreciate Mr. Swallow's comments, because it was actually 4 separate public events where this item or this issue of the acquisition of the Davenport-Curtiss home was discussed. At my annual senior conference, at a coffee hour town hall event I had with Councilmember Lesh at Brecken Village for all of the residents of the Brecken campus, along with Mill Pond Manor, and then it was discussed at 2 separate coffee hours. In fact, the last coffee hour that I hosted in December with Commissioner Beeman, as Deputy City Manager Cole will recall, she was the main presenter, and the bulk of that conversation was focused on the pros and cons, the potential benefits and ramifications of the Davenport-Curtiss acquisition. So certainly in the future, can and should we consider additional opportunities to engage our citizenry? Absolutely, but I think the characterization that little or nothing was done was not accurate. I think that a fair amount of engagement was done on this issue, and over the course of the past 5 months, I've talked to dozens upon dozens of residents, business owners, and community stakeholders about both the benefits and the potential downsides of acquiring this property. Again, as I stated previously, I think this is not only prominent, but it's the most iconic, the most valuable historic asset in our community. Whether you like it or not, there aren't current protections on the property, and there's nothing that would prevent the home being, or the property, the parcel being sold, and the home and outbuildings being demolished, and I think that would be a loss. And as I stated previously, I'm not sure if we're going to be able to make something work here, but I would rather try and fail than look back 20, 30 years from now and see the home and outbuildings, the property lost, and know that we missed an opportunity to try and make something really transformative, really try to make something, really put in effort to make a transformative change in the Saline community. Mr. Gearby, anything you'd like to add?
I can just state from my 22 years of this community and serving in the role that I have, the input and information that I've received as a representative about protecting that property has been significant. If you really want to come down to dollars and cents, we're putting $500,000 into maybe about a 5,000 square foot piece of property. We just bought 6 acres for $3 million. And that, for me, is a feasible aspect of which we also are going to be protecting an asset that could be detrimentally destroyed for our community. And I believe that when we look at things, there's been things done in the past without voter representation. We acquired the land for the rec center with a number of restrictions and everything on it that did not come to a vote, and now we're dealing with that issue in terms of how we have to resolve that. So where we have transparency and where we have things and we look at value, things can be done, and we're done by this board. I can tell you about lack of transparency on that property over the last 50 years, and there's a lot of things that could be asked, but we're moving forward on something that looks like it's going to be beneficial to the city, and we have to put dollar amounts for it. But when I look at the Curtiss Mansion and the property underneath it and the land, similar to when we purchased the land for our industrial parks, we made a significant investment, and those investments have paid off immensely for our community. So this is for the future, and I believe this is an appropriate way of dealing with it. That's why our expertise, that's why we're elected. We're given this, empowered this by our representatives to make these decisions for them. Yes, we make mistakes at times, but I don't believe this is a mistake.
Councilmember Harmer?
I just want to go on the record as saying that I am not opposed to anybody on the working group. I think there's a fine group of folks, and I'm definitely think that the Curtiss Mansion is a beautiful piece of property. My trepidation about it is what's in the best interest of the house. and what is in the best interest of what's financially responsible for the city at this point in time. There's some risks with this that we don't have with the social gathering space. We could risk losing several $1 million if this property is not valued. We did just buy 6 acres for about $650,000. So, I mean, I am definitely supportive of making sure that we have a viable plan moving forward, that whatever the working group recommends, that it is actually going to be sustainable and not a burden on our general funds for the future.
Thank you. Any additional comment or discussion? Okay, we have a motion on the floor moved by Gearboss, seconded by Dillon, to acknowledge and to approve. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay.
Nay.
Ayes have it. The motion carries 4-3. Thank you very much. We move on to the discussion portion of our agenda. And I actually, City Manager Swallow, Mayor Pro Tem Rice will be able to confirm this, but I had actually asked that you give a brief update on US 12 traffic enforcement and weight limits. So maybe you can do that at the end of board and commission announcements. Before we get to reports and other announcements, however, I know that Deputy City Manager Cole will be departing in just a moment. That card and flowers there are for you. So we wanted to acknowledge you on your last official meeting with the City of Saline. Thank you for your dedicated service as Treasurer, Deputy City Manager, and Acting City Manager. It has been a great pleasure working with you, and we know that great things lay ahead for you personally and professionally. We know that you'll do great things at the City of Chelsea. We consider Chelsea a partner, and so hopefully we'll find opportunities to collaborate in the months and years ahead. Is there anything that you would like to add for the public record?
First of all, thank you so much for the flowers. I've been smelling them all night long, thinking that the person going home with those is very lucky. So I'm very lucky this evening. But the real blessing and the real luck came in the gift of working with all of you and the team here in Saline. And I am just so proud of the work that is still being accomplished. And I hope that you carry all the projects forward. And I cannot wait to come back in a year or two and see the new green space and see what you've decided to do with the Davenport-Curtiss house and many more things. I just hope to see Saline continue to thrive. And I know you're in wonderful hands with City Manager Swallow.
Thank you very much. Yep. We look forward to celebrating your tenure later this week as well. Very good. Thank you for your time this evening. All right, I'm going to start to my right again and end to my my left. So, Councilmember Halsch, reports, other announcements, or updates from boards, committees, commissions, or task forces?
Yeah, so I have two. The first update is from Arts and Culture Committee. A subset of the committee met this past week with City Manager Swallow to discuss the venue location, and I think that what's come out of that, because we have the potential for the Mill Pond construction to interfere with Jazz in the Park, we're looking at the possibility of moving the venue. I think the consensus that I've gathered is that we're seriously considering using Curtiss as a potential venue for Jazz in the Park, using the mansion. There's still some logistical hurdles, and there's still stakeholders that we have to reach out to in regards to parking and that sort of thing. But from what I gather, it was a very productive conversation. And then my second update is from Youth Council. Youth Council met for the first time this past year, and one of the major things that came out of that was sort of setting the agenda for this coming year. I was able to introduce myself and sort of what I hope my role can be with Youth Council, and from the kids, they're an amazing group of teens, young people, and they are really, more than anything, beyond their volunteerism, they're looking to really become more civically engaged, which I think is amazing. So one of those ways in which they want to be engaged is their annual toy drive. It started yesterday, and I think boxes will be out at the rec center and at the library. So if you happen to go shopping, and it's called the Spread the Love Toy Drive, and it's meant to kind of cover that gap from Christmas to the rest of the year. It's all donations will go to Mott's Children's Hospital. And so, yeah, if you happen to be out and can grab another toy or just something to make a kid's day better, I would definitely encourage you to do that and drop them off at the rec center or the library.
Thank you, Councilmember Helsch. Councilmember Del Orco, any updates from boards, committees, commissions, or task force or other community announcements?
Not till next week.
Okay. Councilmember Dillon?
Thank you. I've got lots of good news. From the Cable Commission, Channel 18, our local public access channel, is back up and running. It was a monumental feat working with Comcast and construction companies and the schools in the city, but we were able to coordinate and find where the break was and repair the fiber line. So the channel is back up and running with new content on it. Also, Cable Commission will be here at our next council meeting doing a presentation, our yearly presentation. So if there's any specific information in which this body would like from that body, please let me know so we make sure that it's included in the presentation. Urban County met. We had a meeting last week, and as you may remember, I've talked about it at a couple of report outs. They've changed their funding model, and it's basically what had happened is a lot of communities, including Saline, were banking our yearly distributions because it was a small amount of money, and so we were able to bank it to 5 years to make it a sizable amount to put towards a project. They've had some pushback from the federal government about banking money, and the government sort of threatened to claw back the money, saying, well, you guys obviously don't need it if it's all just sitting in an account. So a new system has been developed. City of Saline got sort of shuffled into a new tier, and instead of getting our yearly allocation, what we will be doing is one community will be getting the yearly allocation for all the communities within that tier. And so for within our tier, it's about $50,000 a year. But with that, it means that we would only be getting money every third year. And so we were sort of surprised on Wednesday when they said, hey, City of Saline, you guys are up first. So we are working on what kind of projects. There's very specific guidelines as to how that money can be used. General ADA, and some other things, and it has to be within certain areas within the city. So City Manager Swallow and I are working through that right now. There is the opportunity that if we don't have a project ready or we just have too many other things going at this time to meet the deadlines, we can forego and just sort of get back into the rotation, which would mean that we would either get the money next year or the year after, depending on the agreement with the other communities.
Very good, thank you. Councilmember Gearbaugh, reports or other announcements, updates from any boards, committees, commissions, or task forces?
Just one group met, the Covenants group for the Sauk Trail. We met to talk and discuss about the potential change for the townhome development and the commercial area that will be on what we call Lot 20 on Michigan Avenue. Part of their setback requirements for the residential section cannot be met because of the height of the building and the setback, but because of the way R3 works and because it's an underlying zoning, we were able to recommend that the reduced setback be allowed. So hopefully that'll move forward. We also had the opportunity during that meeting to discuss more of the concerns that we have about traffic flow and some other issues related to how that property will be utilized and potentially what's going on with Michigan Avenue and access across some of the other properties. The only other thing I want to let everyone know too, as you may have noticed, North Ann Arbor Street and Michigan Avenue have had streetlights out on both sides, and it's very dark. City Manager Swallow is working to get DTE to address these. They've been out for a long while. I'm concerned that they are a safety issue at this point in time. And so hopefully, Mayor, if our representative from DTE that works with us can address and have this fixed sooner than later, I would appreciate it.
Did you already email them, or you want me to do that tomorrow?
So yeah, we've gone through the online reporting system and made sure that they're all included, the ones that are out. But obviously, to Councilor Gearbaugh's point,
it's been a long time. It's almost been 3 months. So
follow up with.
Yeah, but remind me tomorrow. I would send it to Molly and her two peers as well. But I find that generally, if you email them directly, you get better traction. Okay, thank you. Councilmember Rice, reports, other announcements, including updates from committees, commissions, or task forces?
Unfortunately, I've been absent from all of my committees and commissions over the last couple of weeks as I fight this respiratory virus from God knows where. But I do want to acknowledge that in our consent agenda this evening, we did pass a resolution for Black History Month. I want to read the last part of that resolution, then I want to discuss something briefly and then give the community some information about an upcoming event. So the last part of that proclamation says, whereas remaining hopeful and confident about the path ahead and time to acknowledge the courageous fight for rights, liberties, and freedoms for all Americans, the City of Saline observes and honors Black History Month and encourages educators, students, and families to learn about the heritage and achievements of African Americans through appropriate programs and activities that reflect the theme for 2026. Not to overshadow Black History Month, but I want to talk to all of our community who are Black, brown, or otherwise non-white, and stress the importance of safety in the city of Saline. I've spoken with the sheriff and the police chief. We held a forum about 2 months ago at the library where we brought in some immigration experts and we discussed how to keep our community safe, some of the laws and regulations on how we can speak up for each other. So I encourage folks, there is an event through Washtenaw County, Sheriff Dyer, law enforcement, other elected officials and immigration rights organizations on this Thursday, February the 5th at the Learning Resources Center, which is on Washtenaw Avenue in Ann Arbor.
I think the sheriff sent me an email, but I'm not sure she sent it to everyone on council. Would you forward that email to everyone on council?
Absolutely.
Councilmember Rice, thank you.
So the things that they're going to talk about there are the role of law enforcement, bystander education and policy, and know your rights. These were really, really educational when we went through them a couple of months ago in our forum. And then also they're going to discuss how leaders are preparing at the local and state level, public safety updates, and other topics. I really encourage anyone in the community to attend this so that we know how to respond in the event that ICE continue to detain people unlawfully, know what our rights are as far as recording ICE, as far as helping our community members. Now's the time when we as elected officials and we as members of this community really need to stand up for the oath that we have sworn ourselves to protect the constitutional rights of everyone who steps foot in America. Those rights do not exclusively belong to citizens of the United States. They belong to everyone who walks into our country. No matter how they got here, no matter where they come from, no matter their background, and especially no matter the color of their skin, everyone deserves the same opportunities to be allowed to have healthy and safe lives. This is not a political issue, this is a humanitarian issue. And so I want to make sure that all of our Black and brown communities members feel safe and that we do our part. And so with that, if anyone has any questions, does not feel safe, I have made some good connections over the last couple of months through some of the work that I've been doing. Please feel free to reach out to me and I can make those connections for you. So people who are more eloquent and more educated in this topic can answer them for you.
Thank you for those comments. Much appreciated. Councilmember Harmount, reports, announcements, or updates from any boards, committees, commissions, or task forces?
Yes, the Environmental Commission met, this is my first meeting for the year, so that was exciting, met on the 21st of last month, and we were able to reappoint our chair and vice chair, as well as establish a subcommittee for Earth Month planning. And we have some ideas for collaboration in the city, so that'll be good to hear from them. They did want me to bring bring back to the dais the idea of for vendors and the vendor guidelines to maybe look at the fees and waiving fees for vendors that are in compliance of the guidelines that will help support a recycling or reduced landfill contributions. So I said I would bring that to the dais.
Much appreciated. We can revisit that. Well, I want to make sure that, does everybody have those guidelines, a copy of the guidelines? Can that be sent out maybe as part of your, or you could send it out directly to council or give it to the city manager to make it part of his weekly communique? Make sure everybody has that policy.
Yeah, those are included when, vendors apply for special events and things like that. We include that with their packages.
Yeah, I know in the past, we haven't had a lot of success always in getting that to be consistent, and so we would want to have the most success of that. So I definitely would love to work with some of the event planning. I know that Arts and Culture maybe has the first up, but to talk about maybe ways we can collaborate to get those results.
Very good. And then last, Mr. Swallow, we obviously have a meeting coming up with our state representative and senior officials from MDOT, which hopefully most, if not all, of council will be able to attend. Do you want to talk a little bit, in addition to that forthcoming meeting, you want to talk about some increased enforcement that's being done on 12 specific to heavy truck traffic?
Sure. I think everybody's familiar with, unfortunately, with the truck traffic as well as heavy traffic that we see on State Highway 12 or Michigan Avenue. And so, in particular, there have been some recurring discussions around, how do we have long-term traffic calming measures? Are there changes we can make to the roadway? Are there changes we can make adjacent to the roadway with landscaping or other standards that could be adopted to try and slow traffic down? So that discussion will be occurring with some of our downtown business owners this coming Friday, the 6th at 10 a.m. And so we are, again, council is welcome to attend that as well, to have that discussion with MDOT, kind of those longer-term measures that we could look at over time, changing that roadway, as well as maybe some short-term low-hanging fruit that might be possible. So the other discussion obviously that's going on is related to the truck traffic increase that we've seen, particularly related to the data center development to the west of us here. And there's been a significant increase in obviously truck traffic, concerns about speed, concerns about other standards related to those trucks. Are they traversing through the community safely? Obviously I've heard reports of, speed concerns as well as, stopping appropriately at a controlled intersection. So I have been working with Chief Radzik to hopefully, well, we are focusing more on US 12 with some of those enforcement concerns, putting patrol cars out there, making additional stops, taking a closer look at those commercial vehicles or those trucks. And so she has communicated that to the officers. We're also working on our own internal process for weight control. We do have scales. We do have the ability to stop those trucks for weight concerns. And so updating officers with that, also improving training so that if and when we do stop them, we're following proper procedures there. Chief Radzik's also been working with Michigan State Police, because obviously once you get outside the jurisdiction of the city, that is either the sheriff's or the state police department there, they do have a more developed motor carrier division that is well trained in weight, dealing with trucks, dealing with safety standards with trucks. My understanding is Michigan State Police also met with the project sponsors related digital to talk about, the vendors that they're using, the trucking companies that they're using, making sure that that they're following proper safety protocols as well as following laws in terms of speed. So they actually welcomed maybe some additional patrols and making sure that their vendors are properly following, laws, traffic laws and standards. So with that, there is an effort by our local police department, by the Michigan State Police to try and manage this. I know that the volume probably cannot be addressed. We can't stop them from utilizing a state highway, but we can address some of the safety concerns that have brought up.
I appreciate that, and subsequent to this Friday's meeting, I think some additional communiques and maybe even a specific, an issue-specific video, similar to the PSAs or weekly updates that we do on this topic, would be advantageous. Again, looking forward to the meeting with senior MDOT officials and our state rep on Friday, and continue to make progress on this issue, because it's timely and important, and people are concerned about it as they should be. Are there questions for the city manager on this matter? I'll go Dylan and then Rice.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Obviously, this is probably one of the biggest issues right now in our community. It's receiving a lot of feedback on social media, directly people contacting us. And one of the biggest things I have is in addition to speed, is the fact that we've got these trucks that are running red lights. They're not semi-red, they're not, I mean, they are clearly, the light going the other direction is green. And it's going to be something catastrophic that's going to happen. I've seen it personally, many people have seen it personally, and that's where the biggest concern lies right now. And I'm hoping that that Related Digital can convey this to its vendors and understand the seriousness of, in this community, we don't tolerate that. The rules of the road are the rules of the road, and it's really becoming just no holds barred right now.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Rice.
I just want to also put on the radar that, especially as we get into the warmer seasons, North and South Ann Arbor Street, there are just an outrageous amount of double haulers. As we get into the warmer months and we start programming the downtown, and sometimes we have street closures or detours or things like that, I'm about 2 blocks from the Four Corners, and I can hear them Jake braking because they have to slam on their brakes when school gets out because traffic gets backed up. So as it starts to get warmer and pedestrians are out and about, I'm getting really nervous looking out my front door.
Appreciate the feedback. Councilmember Harmount, then I'll jump to Del Orco.
I just wanted to revisit, it was brought to my attention about the amount of water to mix the concrete or to mix the cement and how much that would equate to about 1.9 million gallons of water is what my estimate is. So does that align with what they told us that the water usage that they were going to have on site was going to be?
I honestly don't know. I mean, the discussions I've had with them is, ongoing water use once the site is constructed. We did not discuss construction.
I don't remember anything specific being shared about water usage for construction activity. It was water usage or the lack of water usage as a coolant once the facility is operational.
I do know a water truck came up South Ann Arbor Street today. A water hauler.
Councilmember Del Orco.
Yeah, everyone's frustrated by the gravel trains. They are certainly loud and unruly, but I think it's going to get significantly worse when they do start pouring concrete. I don't know if they're planning on putting manufacturing the concrete on site, or they're going to truck it in with cement trucks, dump trucks, but those are going to be heavier, louder, and coming from all different directions. So we should have an eye toward that as well.
Mr. Gearbow?
Just curious, did they adjust any of the signals to accommodate their traffic going through town?
No, not that I'm aware of. There was, about a month ago, there was a concern that actually there was more backup in downtown in terms of the signal timing. And so I know we did reach out to MDOT, and they were going to come out and check, make sure there wasn't some sort of error in the programming. But I'm not aware that anything has been done for that related to the project.
Oh, and you wanted questions from us if we had any for Friday's meeting?
Encourage, yeah. If there's specific questions that I can forward to MDOT in advance, obviously we'll get a better answer.
Yeah, one of them would be what do we need to do to reduce the speed going through? Because I know trucks are coming in 55 miles an hour into our 45 mile an hour zone, and I almost got clipped on turning into a drive the other day. It's like, you can't judge those things coming into town. So, yeah, this is a major safety concern.
Okay, thank you all for that. We come now to the second public comment period. Under the Open Meetings Act, any person may come forward at this time, make comment to City Council, which will be limited to 3 minutes. Those wishing to speak are requested but not required to state their name and address for the record. Please note, City Council generally does not answer questions during the public comment period. Are there any citizen comments this evening? Please come to the podium, and you'll have 3 minutes once you begin.
Before I begin, I have some pictures here that would help you understand what I'm doing.
Please, if you'd like to provide them to my council colleague, we will make sure that they're distributed.
Okay. This is everything was brought from this booklet from the NIH. I don't work with the NIH, and I'm here to address some really serious issues. And I went to great extent to provide these for you.
Great.
I think you need to understand what's going on.
Thank you.
Okay. It took me 30 hours to do the research, and it comes to 3 minutes and 30 seconds. So I'd like to.
Let me start over. I'll give you exactly 3 minutes, but our rules are 3 minutes, so please go ahead.
Members of City Council, thank you for allowing me to have the opportunity to speak to you. This is a matter of civic duty. I believe I represent the majority of Saline residents and their concern regarding the threat the data center presents to our water supply. The remarkable amount of water required by the data centers is well documented. The data center in Saline Township will be bigger than any data center in the United States. So we should expect Saline Township's data center to use more water than any other data center in the United States. Think about it. Just north of the data center on higher ground is Gelman Sciences. Gelman was given license by the City of Ann Arbor and the EPA to deep well inject 1,4-dioxane waste many years ago, 1 mile deep into the ground. A plume of 1,4-dioxane was discovered in residence wells near Gelman several decades later. Excuse me. 1,4-dioxane has entered the aquifer and was beginning to flow. And as we know, all water flows downhill. Downhill from Gelman Sciences is Scioto Township. This past summer, 1,4-dioxane was detected in Scioto Township's residence wells. Several weeks after this made the news, Scioto Township issued a notice to their residents that they had raised the toxicity of 1,4-dioxane. The message was, you could continue drinking the water even though 1,4-dioxane had been detected in their wells. Residents of Scioto Township are currently receiving bottled water from Gelman as per court order. The data center is downhill from Scioto Township. The negative pressure created from the data center pumping out large quantities of water will cause a negative pressure on the aquifer and cause the aquifer to flow more rapidly downhill in the direction of the data center. A few miles east of the data center are the City of Saline's 4 wells. A few miles east of the data center are the city's 4 wells, yes, where all the residents of Saline get their drinking water from, excuse me. These wells are located between Scioto Township and the data center. Everyone is worried about the data center using so much water, it will deplete the aquifer. This is a concern for many, but I'm here to tell you the poisoning of our water with 1,4-dioxane is a clear and imminent threat. The data center said they would dig 4 wells. On January 29th, 2026, I learned the data center had drilled 8 wells. City Council may have already considered an emergency action plan this past summer when one of Saline's wells went down. Considering a solution if the problem got worse and wells failed to provide water to Saline residents, a water alert would be broadcast and residents advised not to drink the water. A water alert would be broadcast. The city would then have to begin the process of hooking up to the big water pipe from Lake Huron, laying water pipe from Saline to Detroit, tying in somewhere in Detroit. This would cause taxes to skyrocket. The people of the state of Michigan own the aquifer and are the stewards of the aquifer. We must not allow 2 out-of-state Fortune 500 companies to seize control of our aquifer.
I gotta stop you because we've reached the end of the 3 minutes. We appreciate the comments. Why don't we make sure that before we end tonight, if you need your materials back, we're happy to provide them.
I guess I do. I'd like to collect it when I'm through.
Yep, we'll give them back to you, and then if you can, we'll make sure to get your contact information so we can continue the conversation, okay?
I only have 2 sentences left.
All right, if you got a few sentences left, go for it.
This is a real and imminent threat to our water supply and requires urgent action. A threat of this magnitude requires an immediate special vote by Saline residents. A society that protects data centers before drinking water has lost its priorities. And I have so much more that would be of interest to you. The size of the plume 6 miles north of here, down uphill on Wagner Road, is 4 miles by 1 mile. It's the site of a EPA Superfund site.
Right.
You know that, huh?
Yep. Well, let's make sure we get your contact information so we can continue the dialogue. We appreciate it.
The opportunity.
Thank you for your time this night. We appreciate the patience. Any additional citizen comments? Clerk Roy, were there any written comments provided in advance of tonight's meeting which the individual wanted their remarks read at this time? Yes. Then, if there's nothing further to be brought before City Council this evening, the chair would be delighted to entertain a motion to adjourn at 9:14.
So moved.
Moved by Gearbaugh to adjourn. Is there a second? Seconded by Del Orco. All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.